All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Kane County Finance and Budget Committee. I'll do roll call. Juby,
Maybe here.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Surges,
Here.
Tepe,
Tepe here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman, Pirog. In-person quorum. I need a motion.
Berman's here, but non-voting.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion and a second to vote for a pro temp chair for the Finance Committee.
Sanchez moves. Mr. Tepe to run the meeting.
Lewis will second that.
If there are no other nominations, you could proceed to a vote.
So if Mr. Berman is here and voting,
He's
Not voting. It's online.
not voting.
Not voting.
not
He's
voting.
online.
Point of order. The second was done by someone remote and we haven't, that hasn't been approved for remote access.
That is
So could
correct.
you-
The
so-
second would need to be by somebody in person,
Yes,
or
in the
somebody
room.
who's been approved to appear remotely.
Thank you.
Juby seconds.
Okay, roll call. Okay, the nomination is Vern Tepe. And for roll call, Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Since I haven't been approved, can I vote?
oh, I'm sorry, Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Thank you. Good morning. In anticipation of this event happening, I had discussion with Mr. Leonard and with a couple of the board members. There are a lot of items on the agenda, so we will be doing some things a little bit differently than we typically have, but still within the rules to try to move things along. Okay. First off, we have in remote attendance Anita Lewis and Bill Leonard. Is there any objection to their participating in the meeting? Okay, then they're on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Berman is non-voting.
I'm on vacation.
Okay, I understand that. I was kind of lost. Thanks, James.
Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of September 27?
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. We'll now have the comments on agenda items. I want people to understand that we will be enforcing the 5-minute rule very rigidly. So once that light up there turns red, please stop. Okay. If not, we will have to stop you. All right. We have a lot on our agenda. We want to hear from you. We want to give you that opportunity, but we need to move along also. First is Frank Esposito.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. Let me first say, I listened to the board meeting of the 23rd, and I've got to compliment not everyone here. There are people missing here that were at that meeting, but I was quite impressed with the conversation about the budget. There was a back and forth, and many people think that all of you just say that there has to be an increase in taxes, and it was obviously from that meeting that there are some different opinions as to how we can fund what we need to do. So I want to just say thank you, that it's obvious that there are discussions, and it's not just boilerplate, you're going to go through with something. Part of the information in the packet of the hundreds of pages for the meeting was this one thing about the number of people that have left the state of Illinois. Now, it doesn't indicate how many people left Kane County, but I would assume that it's the same thing. We're losing people in Kane County, but that's an assumption, okay? If that's true, you've got fewer people that are going to be paying the taxes of whatever type it is that we've got to consider. So all I'm asking is, if we're projecting a loss with this budget, that we've got to raise the taxes to cover what we're going to spend, maybe we need to think twice about what we're going to spend. At that meeting, I know you've got to cover the payroll. And I understand that. I had my own business, and you always have to cover the employees. But I think we've got to tighten our belt. The way the economy is right at the moment, with interest rates that are probably going to go up even higher than they are now, we've really got to be serious about the way we spend the money that you're collecting. So I know if it reaches this point, it's probably going to go through just the way it is. I would hope that you give it more consideration to look at the fine points of each area and see, is there a way that we can cut? I would hate to say, take a 5% cut in every area. That's, I don't think is realistic. There are some safety issues that you have to be concerned about, and making sure that you have the ability to cover. Okay, but so please, I just ask that we look at that budget in detail and cut wherever we can. If you have to raise the taxes, maybe you don't have to raise them as much. Okay, I know the treasurer keeps talking about the fact he's earning more interest than was anticipated. I also remember from the meeting the other day, maybe that's not a good way to fund projects as we go along, because in a month, maybe the interest rates will go down and you're not going to get as much income. So I just want to say, I'm expressing my concern. Kane County is a wonderful place. For many years, I lived in DuPage, and when my daughters left, we downsized and came out to Kane County. I wish I had seen Kane County before now, because I would have moved here a long time ago. So please, really, with a fine-tooth comb, go over that budget and see wherever we can cut. And if you have to raise taxes, keep that to a minimum, because the word on the street that I hear is, if the board keeps raising taxes, maybe we better look for new people on the board to look at other ways to do things. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Kuzmak. Am I pronouncing your name right, I hope?
But I'm following that gentleman, because nobody wants to see taxes go up, right? But we also don't want to lose our quality employees to, DuPage and Will and McHenry. I'm here though, because I'm concerned about Mr. Lawson's behavior. And it also connects to your taxes going up, because now there's been a second woman who has been released and received some of our hard-earned tax dollars on severance. I understand that a while back, Sheila McCraven, she was the longtime executive director of human resources. She filed some type of federal complaint. You probably know more about that than I do. It's hard to find out information. But the federal complaint was against Mr. Lawson for harassment and just an inappropriate culture in his office. And ended up, some of your hard-earned tax dollars went to a 6-figure severance pay for the woman. So, you know, maybe we could save some money there in terms of not cutting your taxes, or not raising your taxes. Then last May, Carolyn Brady, who was the director of finance operations, 17 years this woman worked here for the county. And I got to tell you, you guys don't pay that well. So she must have really liked her job and she must have been good at it. And yet she also was paid off. 46,000 is what Shaw reports. It's kind of hard to get at the numbers there with insurance and whatnot. So that's pretty significant money. I would like to see an audit done of that. And I would like to see that information released publicly so that maybe we could save some money there. And not for all these people who are going to get up and say, don't raise taxes. You know what? Everything is going up. We don't like it. Everything is going up. When things go up, they don't come back down. And we don't want to continue to lose our quality employees to these other counties. I don't want to pay more taxes either, but also I want to be able to get the services that we've all come to appreciate. So thank you for doing what you do. The Finance Committee is going to have some hard decisions, but can we please audit what's going on with all this money going to these women who the culture is to maybe mistreat them, which that would save us some money. Thank you.
Thank you. Fugman? Did I say it right?
It's like Fugman, but it's Fugman.
Fugman.
No, it's Fugman.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't plan on speaking today. I showed up as a homeowner for almost 36 years in Batavia. I was in DuPage County and now I'm in Kane County. I love Batavia. But this transition, I'm going to piggyback on both of these speakers because they did their homework. This is the first time I need to have a voice. I'm 68 years old. My house is paid off. My transition of my marriage is changed. And I might have to move out of Kane County because of the taxes. Now, that's maybe not a concern to you, but it's a concern for those that are age or aging. Do I go back to work? What do I do to split this thing that I'm trying to do and make sense of it? Because all your paperwork, the stuff to do to actually find out this, I talked to this wonderful gentleman and he did his homework and he couldn't figure it out. 600 pages is not a good thing for a homeowner that votes and thinking you're going to get what you guys are paid for. I don't know what you all do. I just know that in the end, I might have to move out of the state. And that is upsetting to me. I have friends, friends and family in the Kane County area, and I can't afford to move either. So I'm kind of stuck. And I ask that you think wide. If you all live in Kane County, it's going to affect all you. Look at someone that doesn't have the income like I should have to equate what you're going to do. So I please ask your God-given rights, and this is my God-given right as a patriot. Thank you.
Thizer, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to come up and just, remind you that this isn't just a vote for tax. This is a vote for people that work really hard and have been in this county. My family's been in this county for 150 years. And I get passionate about these things because you see people migrate from Cook County to DuPage to Kane and continue to go because it gets so expensive to live here. So I would just remind you that this affects people. This isn't just a little vote. You get up, you vote, you go about your day. This affects people's lives.
Thank you. There are people on the list, but in my opinion, this is nothing to do with the agenda. So these will have to wait until off agenda items. All right. And as I said, we're going to try to move the meeting along because we have a very long agenda. So for the treasurer's report and audit report, Mr. Treasurer, if you're here, does anybody on the committee have any direct questions for the treasurer? Thank you. We have your report. Does anybody on the committee have any direct questions for the auditor?
Mr. Tuppy. I have a question about the resolution that the auditor is putting forward. Are you asking if there's questions on
we
the
do-
report filed or on the resolution?
We now have to work on the resolution. So the resolution is next.
Okay, I do not have a problem with the reports being filed.
Okay. You have a resolution, Ms. Wegman?
This would be the claims paid resolution.
Sanchez moves.
And have a second?
Should be seconds.
Juby second? Any discussion? All right, let's call the roll.
Juby,
Should be aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
Tuppy, yes.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Passes.
All right, next is the finance director's report and a long list of items to be discussed by the finance director. And what we are going to do is we are going to move items 1 and 2 on the agenda under the finance director's report to the end of her agenda.
Mr. Tuppy, may we also move number 3, the resolution adopting the tax levy for the general fund, because that is also predicated.
Okay, we'll move items 1,
Thank
2,
you.
and 3 to the end of. So, Ms. Hopkinson, please proceed.
Thank you. I have a presentation, but it has to do with the overall budget, so I'm going to save that since it kind of goes along with numbers 1 and 2. I'll save that to the end.
I understand we sprung this on you at the last minute. Please proceed in whichever way you feel is appropriate.
Okay, so the monthly finance reports are on file. Does anyone have any questions on those? Okay, then we're going to move to number 4. Adopting a tax levy for the insurance liability fund.
Should be second.
I think Vern, you gotta.
Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes. Ms. Juby?
On these following small funds, we're only asking for what we need in those funds, correct?
Yes.
So it should be an even wash on all of them.
Yes.
Okay, I will have no more questions on any of the other funds then. Thank you.
Any other questions? And by the way I'd like to proceed is to first have questions from the committee members and then to, of course, open it up for any other board members that want to comment on the items. So no more discussion. Let's vote on it. Roll call,
Juby?
please.
Should be aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Passes.
Next is item 5, adopting a tax levy for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund in the amount of $4,917,586.
Sanchez moves.
Should be second.
Okay,
You can take it.
Ms. Hopkinson, do you have a comment or,
It's the same as last year.
okay, any questions? Let's do the roll call.
Juby,
Should be aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
passes.
Item number 6, adopting a tax levy for the Social Security Fund in the amount of $5,061,266.
Sanchez
Move.
moves.
Should be
Sanchez
second.
moves second,
I'll second it,
to be
Sanchez.
second. Any discussion? Shall we have a roll call?
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe. Passes.
Item 7, resolution adopting a tax levy for the county highway fund in the amount of $5,010,909.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez
Lewis will
moves.
second.
Lewis
Lewis
second.
second.
Any discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Believe me, it will not continue at this pace for.
No, it won't.
Item number 8, adopting a tax levy for the county bridge fund in the amount of $312,695.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Juby second.
Lewis,
Juby seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 9, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the county highway matching fund in the amount of $65,125.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 10, adopting a tax levy for the Kane County Health Fund in the amount of $1,972,455.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis will second.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion?
Vern, can I ask, Cap, can you give us if that's an increase or decrease? Are these all the same?
Numbers 10 and 11 are the same as last year. I take that back. 11 is more than last year. 11.
Okay, roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 11, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Veterans Commission Fund in the amount of $532,556.
Burgess moves.
Surges moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez seconds. Any discussion?
Sure. I just want to comment that Jake does just such a fabulous job with this, and for what he could have asked for and what he asked for, this is outstanding.
Ditto. The excellent
Truly.
reputation. His staff does a fine job. No doubt about that. Yes, Madam Chair.
And I would just like to remind this committee that this is a mandate from the state of Illinois, that this increase can happen at his, it takes directly out of our county-wide CPI property tax. So it is reduction from the total property tax. He could have asked for much, much more than that, which would have been deducted from the total levy for the property tax. So that's the way this works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Roth here. I just had a question. What is the increase, just for the record?
So it's $71,491 more than last year's levy for veterans.
Okay, thank you.
And just to decide, I know that they added an individual to the group. Okay. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item 12, a resolution adopting a tax levy for Mill Creek Special Service Area in the amount of $939,680.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis, second.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion?
We have a representative from Mill Creek here today to speak. Their levy represents an increase that exceeds the CPI. So we have a representative here to speak to that. If the board
I'm
is
sorry,
interested.
their
Their levy increase exceeds the CPI. Their levy request. Mill Creek.
my understanding is though, they're not subject to the PTEL law. Is that correct?
I believe they are. We still need to put,
But they need a
public
truth and
notice.
taxation meeting. So that would need to be
yes,
scheduled.
no, this vote here doesn't need to be rescheduled. But a truth and taxation hearing has to be held for this particular levy. At some
That's my
point over
understanding.
the next month, yes.
Yes, that was discussed on Monday, I believe. So yes.
Yes.
Any questions about that? Oh, Ms.
I
Judy?
just- Do we have a date for their truth and taxation hearing? And does the county board actually has to hold that, correct? Because we handle their money?
Yes.
But what is that date?
I think my initial discussions, it would probably, it has to probably be sometime between our November 6th and our November 21st county board meeting. So we were talking about it yesterday that it might be November 14th because we have a regularly scheduled county board meeting that day.
And is there a reason why we need to approve this now and not have it come before us when we have our truth and taxation?
That I don't have the answer to.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shepro?
Yeah, the reason why this is on the agenda for today at finance is because we have to go through the process in order to get to the board holding the hearing and eventually adopting or not adopting the levy. But it is correct that it is subject to the truth and taxation because the rate was set by theoretically the owners of the property themselves. There's a maximum rate that is already approved. And as long as any proposed increase is within that previously adopted rate, there is no PTEL implication. If somebody wanted to appropriate in excess of what was approved, you would have to go through effectively reestablishing the special service area with a new rate. That makes sense.
Madam Chair?
And I would just like to remind everybody that this is not part of our CPI.
Right.
This is a separate entity. The only taxpayers who will be paying this are those residents of Mill Creek.
Okay, roll call, please.
Juby,
Yeah,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard.
Leonard, yes.
Okay, I don't expect too much discussion on this next item. It's a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Shirewood Farm Special Service Area in the amount of $110.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis
Judy
will second.
seconds.
Lewis will second. No questions, I hope. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Yeah,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item number 14, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Wildwood West Special Billing Area in the amount of $6,165.
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Leonard moved, Sanchez second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item number 15, adopting a tax levy for the Plank Road Estate Special Billing Area in the amount of $1,575.
Sanchez.
Lewis moves.
Lewis moves, Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item number 16, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Exposition View Special Billing Area in the amount of $500.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Juby seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item number 17, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Pasadena Drive Special Billing Area in the amount of $1,300.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item 18, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Tamara Dittman Special Billing Area in the amount of $1,215.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item 19, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Church Molitor Special Service Area in the amount of $3,334.
Lewis moves.
Lewis moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item 20, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the 45W 185 Plank Road Special Service Area in the amount of $4,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item 21, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Boyer Road Special Service Area in the amount of $700.
Sanchez
Lewis.
moves.
Sanchez moves. Lewis
Lewis
seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Item 22, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the Crane Road Estate Special Billing Area in the amount of $66,196.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder to everyone that all these items with special billing areas are self-imposed taxes by those residents of those areas for capital improvements in their communities. And that does not impact the general tax levy that the county would be imposing upon all of its residents. It's unique and special to those residents only.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
All right, now we slow down. All right. Item number 22, an ordinance authorizing for the fiscal year 2024, a non-union cost of living wage increase in the amount of 3%.
Surges moves.
Surges moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd like to offer just what my understanding has been a historical explanation of how we came about this. It has been said that previously a 2% bulk rate would be given to each of the department heads for their own individual disbursement. So that it would be depending is more of a merit raise rather than a cost of living raise. So some people may be hypothetically get 1%, other people may be getting a 15% increase. This is an equitable raise for all county employees within our control. That is the government employees. That does not impact the other elected officials who will be giving a bulk amount for their distribution.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Okay. Item number 24, resolution authorizing an increase in the county motor fuel tax.
Mr. Chair, a point of order. Would we want to cover 24 and 25 after we've had the budget presentation and discussion? It seems directly related to that conversation.
Did you, let's see, Ms. Hopkins, did you have a budget presentation?
I do. It's very similar to what I gave on Monday. Very similar.
Are we in agreement to do that now?
No,
asking for.
I would like to be recognized. The reason why I think we should not be discussing it until we've talked about the motor fuel tax increase or the RTA sales tax increase is because the budget is predicated on those two things. And if we don't have those discussions first and we pass the budget and then we don't want these things, we're kind of screwed.
But I believe we're talking about a budget presentation, not voting on the budget
I
resolution.
think what we're talking about is moving what our number one and our number two before 24 and 25. And I'm saying I think we should keep it after 25 because those things directly pertain to the increase in motor fuel tax and the RTA sales tax. That's, I thought, what the state's attorney said to us this morning.
I think we're talking about the sequence in which we vote on things, not the sequence in which we present things.
Correct.
Okay? I think it would be best to have the budget presentation now if we could.
Very similar presentation to the presentation that we gave on Monday at the special board meeting.
Yeah.
No, I got it. It moved.
And could you speak a little louder, please?
Sure. So this presentation is very similar to the presentation that I gave on Monday. Really not too much difference.
Question, Blair, could you increase the,
You biggie size that?
please?
Oh.
You can advance it. though, correct?
Review.
Can you advance it? At her call? Okay.
Yeah, it's not too many pages.
We'll make it a little smaller. There's only 8 pages.
Hey.
Thank you.
And we can read it. Good.
So the total general fund budget for proposed budget for 2024 is $122,418,212, which is slightly less than the 2023 budget for the general fund by about $779,000. This budget considers the following key pieces. It considers a property tax increase for the general fund. It considers moving RTA sales tax revenue dollars from the transportation department to the general fund, and then making the transportation department whole by increasing the motor fuel tax. And it also considers transfers in of $185,702 and $111,187 from 2 other funds that are funded by RTA sales tax revenues, but as part of their 2024 budget preparation, they did not budget to use all of their RTA sales tax dollars. So we budgeted a transfer out from those 2 funds over to the general fund. Those 2 funds in the past, over the years since they've been created by the board, those 2 funds were created by this board, county board. They have historically transferred monies from their funds to the general fund. So it is not unusual to budget a transfer from those funds to the general fund. The general fund budget also includes a use of our reserve funds of $3.4 million. Some of the expense highlights, it does include 3% wage increase. The budget as it stands includes the equity adjustments that have been included as part of the equity project that has been going on here for the last year and a half. At the county, it includes the vacant positions. A couple of key significant budget reductions. The sheriff did cut his salary and wage line item in his adult corrections department by $1 million. He also cut due to the decrease in the number of inmates in the jail as a result of the Safety Act. It's now under 300 inmates. He did reduce the detainee medical costs, which he is obligated to provide, by $1.2 million since last year's budget. So those are some of the key highlights in the general fund. And those were big numbers, $2.2 million being cut from the sheriff's budget. This slide is the high level of the general fund only, and I'll just go over some of the key changes from last year. So this proposed budget includes an increase in the property tax revenue for the general fund. The other tax revenue, there's various taxes included in that line item. One is the RTA sales tax revenue being moved over from the transportation department. Also, we expect to see a slight increase in income tax revenue from the state as part of the state General Assembly changing the percent that they distribute to local governments as of August 1st of 2023. So we should see a little bit more. And our sales tax revenue, because inflation is high, rates are high, we should continue to see some increases there. But most of that $10 million is the revenue coming from the transportation department. Most of the other items, the next two items, grants and charges, licenses and permits and grants are pretty flat. Charges for services continue to go down. I'm sure as a lot of the departments have explained, a lot of our fees, especially in our judicial system and our court system, judges are waiving fees. The ability to charge fees, court fees on individual documents has decreased. So our revenue from those sorts of fees across the county, not just in judiciary, but mainly there, are going down as the activity on which those fees are charged has gone down. Fines are pretty flat, reimbursements are flat. Interest revenue, the 2024 budget does include an allocation of interest earned, the $12 million of interest earned that the treasurer has forecast. The share that goes to the general fund is included in this. Other revenue, that line item, that $3.6 million in the 2024 budget actually represents the reserve money that we would be using to balance the budget, and then transfers in all of the special revenue funds across the county are charged a fee by our IT department, sort of like a service fee for the services that IT provides. So the bulk of that number is transfers in. Last year, the transfer in number was 17 million because we were transferring money in from the reserves. I just did it differently this year so that it's showing up in other. On the expense side, the salaries and wages line item, it shows an increase over last year. That difference is the 3% increase for non-union employees, also the equity adjustments, the amount for the equity adjustments from that project that has gone on the last couple of years. Employee benefits, We looked deeply into how we had been budgeting for employee benefits. And I think we have a better number this year, which is why that's reduced over last year. Contractual services are about the same. Commodities have gone down a little bit. Again, we were looking at how we budget for certain things like utility expenses. We tightened up on those budget line items. Capital, there's really not so much out of this general fund. The general fund funds the capital in the capital projects fund, which is that fund, the capital projects fund created by this board. But in essence, actual capital expenditures out of the general fund proper, there's not too many. And then transfers out is a slight decrease. That includes primarily that $4 million. It includes a $3 million debt service payment. That's most of that. And we will continue, the county is scheduled to continue to make debt service payments. We have 3 bond issues that are still open, 2 that are being funded by the general fund, and the Long Meadow one, which hopefully come winter, we will defease those Long Meadow toll revenue bonds. Does anyone have any questions on this? Yeah.
Yeah, is this, I'm sorry, Surges, is this posted someplace for the public to view, or is this?
We can make sure it gets on the webpage.
Okay. So it's not up yet.
It's not up yet.
Got it. Thank you.
It's
But
not-
I believe it was emailed to all of the board members.
Well, I emailed the one for
Previous.
Monday. I made one little tiny change. I changed the header so that it said Finance Committee, and made one little tiny change. So I need to, this morning, so I need to re-email this to everybody. We can make sure it's on. Okay, next slide.
Go ahead.
So this is the one side that I had to make a slight change on. So this shows the changes in property tax levies from 2022 to 2023, and then 2023 to 2024. It's actually a 4.4% increase over 2023. So the changes currently are the general fund budgeted increase of 2.4 million, Veterans Commission 71,000, and then the various special service area funds, Mill Creek, Wildwood West, Cheval, and then we have a brand new special service area this year, Boyer Road. So those are all the changes. Next slide. The special revenue funds have a larger appropriation than the general fund. As I've mentioned many times, the general fund houses mainly salaries and benefits. Well, I emailed the one for Monday.
Needs a second.
Oh, you throw your voice like that.
Go ahead.
Special revenue funds actually have a larger appropriation than the general fund. A significant part of this is the transportation department. They're the largest part. Some key things that are built into this 2024 proposed budget is to reduce the RTA sales tax revenue that's allocated to transportation by about 25%, and move that to the general fund to help balance the general fund in the amount of 6.2 million. And then to make the transportation department whole by increasing the motor fuel tax from 4.7 cents to 8 cents. And if you have that motor fuel tax resolution, and you look at the history of that motor fuel tax, it was put in place decades ago, and then it was initially put in place at 2 cents, and then the county in 2007 increased the motor fuel tax from 2 cents to 4 cents. And then since then, the Illinois Department of Revenue because the state law changed in 2020 where the local motor fuel tax is now tied to the consumer price index. So the Illinois Department of Revenue raises it based on the consumer price index every year. So over the last, since 2020, it's gone from 4% to 4.7 cents. I keep saying percent. It's cents on the gallon. Cents on the gallon, not on the price. So it's 4.7 cents per gallon pumped. McHenry County just raised theirs from 4.7 cents to 8 cents in September. Raising the local option motor fuel tax would add an additional $7.1 million in local option motor fuel tax revenue. The state only will only process the increase for a motor fuel tax twice a year. So any vote that is taken now, we just missed a deadline. It was October 1st. So the next possibility, once voted in by this county board, for the increase to be put into effect would be July 1st. So for next year's budget, we would only be contemplating an additional 2.9, essentially $3 million for transportation, but over a 12-month period, it would be 7.1 million, which is actually more than the amount that we're moving from RTA sales tax revenue over to the general fund. Also, the local option motor fuel tax, since it's tied to inflation, our county board has the authority by state statute to raise it up to 8. We can't raise it any higher right now per state law, but since it's tied to inflation, it will continue to go up past 8. DuPage County, they've had theirs at 8 for a while, and their motor fuel tax right now is actually 9 cents per gallon because it is tied to inflation. Does anyone have any questions? This? Okay. Next slide. Just talking about reserves. So one of the reasons why the county in the last essentially 2 years has these additional reserves is because of the CARES and the ARPA Act money. And what we've been talking about is that our buildings management department has now hired staff, put together a 5-year capital plan to fix some of the things that have been delayed, some of the building maintenance projects that have been delayed over the years. The 5-year capital plan is $41 million. These reserves, these excess reserves that the county has accumulated in the last 2 years should be put to use for those capital projects. If you see up there, I have that they should fund the capital projects. For a number of reasons, we've had, if you look at some of the capital projects that have been funded this year, for example, the chiller, which I love that name, the chiller. It's a $2 million project that wasn't budgeted for this year. But since it essentially broke in the summer, the county is now paying tens of thousands. I think it's around $30,000 a month for a generator while the chiller is being fixed. So, back to that list of capital projects that was presented by buildings management. There's numerous projects on there that have been delayed for many, many years. And it would be a risk to the county to not, if we did not start tackling those projects, which is why I have up there that we should be funding our capital projects, our 5-year capital projects plan with those reserves. And that we should not be using them to balance the general fund fund balance for salaries and wages, which essentially the general fund is salaries and benefits. Does anyone have
Question, Madam Chair.
Not a question, just a comment. I was asked by Mr. Surges, and I want to let everybody know that we're working on that. We're taking a look at what the mandated services are, both historically and then from 2017 all the way up through 2023. What the state legislature has passed. But the Constitution that was passed in 1970, the Illinois State Constitution, details what some of the services are of the county. These are the mandates. The very first one, of course, is passing the budget. But the second one is most interesting. It's to protect and preserve and maintain the structures of the buildings so that they can be well suited for staff to do their work. And this capital presentation, this budget that has been presented, actually includes that for the very first time in a very long time. In order to keep the budget depressed and low from previous years, those, as we heard, many of the capital improvements have not been done for a number of years. They were kind of patched together, small staff. Because if you don't have the resources, you don't have the ability to maintain the fixed assets that you have. These fixed assets are very critical for Kane County and they are mandated, again, historically. And I'll bring all those presentations to you next week.
Mr. Surges.
Madam Chair, just in some brevity, while reading that documentation, to provide suitable fireproof safes. I don't know when this was written, but it was, yeah, I was just,
I know.
are there trucks backed up with cash that we're putting in safes or I just thought it was,
There-
I read that
there-
and thought that was humorous.
I think that there's probably a few safes in the treasurer's office for cash and cash is still given for paying
I
taxes.
just thought it was. So,
It was 1 year before the Chicago fire where all the records were in the safe at the Chicago Title Company.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, next slide. Oh, sorry, go back one. There we go. Yeah, right there. So, same interest earned slide. So the 2024 budget we did budget for, the treasurer had given us his estimate at $12 million in interest for next year. So all of those amounts there have been included in the budget. Next slide. And the equity adjustments that were based on the study that was conducted by the HR department over the last year and a half. All of those equity adjustments have been included in the budget. For the general fund, we put the equity adjustments and the cost of living in a countywide line item pending passing of the budget, then we'll move it to each department budget. And next slide. And then this slide, I think you've seen before. This is just comparing Kane, DuPage, McHenry, and Lake, just based on the, what I would call the general tax revenues of those counties, property taxes, sales taxes, which the sales tax comes from the state. It is not a county tax. The RTA sales tax comes from the state. The state motor fuel tax comes from the state, and that has increased over the last couple of years because in I think it was 18, the state doubled the state motor fuel tax, and our share wasn't an exact. We didn't get double what we had been getting. I think we're getting about 70% more because the state is taking more for administration of the state motor fuel tax, but the amount of state motor fuel tax revenue that goes to our transportation department has increased significantly over the last few years. Local motor fuel tax is the 4.7 cents tax that is available to only some of the collar counties. DuPage, theirs is currently 9 cents. McHenry, they just raised theirs from 4.7 cents to 8 cents in September. Lake County just turned on, essentially just started assessing their local motor fuel tax in the middle of 2021. which is why that revenue is not as large as their 2022 revenue. So they just started assessing that tax. And it's really only that local motor fuel tax is available to Lake, DuPage, McHenry, and Kane. And I believe that's it. Other taxes, variety of other taxes, including the cannabis tax, income tax revenue, we get that from the state. And then the personal property replacement tax revenue, we also get that share from the state. And that one is a little tricky to forecast because the state has, they pay based on an estimate. And they have indicated in some communications over the last year that perhaps their estimate was not exactly, that they need to do a better job on their estimate. So I've been looking at some of the other counties and how they're estimating for PPRT for 2024, and they're essentially just budgeting the same as they did in 2023. So that is what I did, because there's a little bit of uncertainty if that particular revenue is going to change. And then I just did a simple calculation where I took these general tax revenues and divided it by the population in the county. And I took those population numbers from all of those government's audit reports as I did all these numbers. And King County, the tax revenue per capita is as delineated on that last line. And that is it.
Any questions for Kathy from the presentation?
Recognize me?
Oh,
Okay.
I believe
Well, I don't
couldn't see
know
your
if you're
hand.
looking at Jared or looking at me. So, where exactly in the budget are the capital projects? Are they just showing up in the general fund or are they?
So there is a fund, it is called the Capital Projects Fund. We consider it in our special revenue funds. So that 271 million in special revenue funds, that includes everything that's not the general fund. So all the, we've talked about the 124 funds across the county. So the budget roll up that we call special revenue includes all of those funds, including the Capital Projects Fund. So the Capital Projects Fund for 2024 is currently funded to match the Buildings Management Department's 2024 plan. So if you remember their 5-year plan, they listed out projects that they are going to complete in 2024, projects that they're going to complete in 2025, and so on. So right now, there's enough money in that capital projects fund just to complete the 2024 projects. And some of those projects are multi-year projects. So I would be recommending that, and if you remember their 5-year plan, they had highlighted some of their projects that they thought if they had enough funding, they could move forward because of the significance of those projects. I would be recommending that we, perhaps either as part of this budget or subsequent to the budget, that some of those reserve funds be moved to help start funding the multiple years of those capital projects.
That was my my follow-up question is it possible for us to take years 1 through 3? Because there was a lot of variables on whether a year 3 thing would actually make it to year 3. Is it possible to take that money out of our reserves and put it into the fund and then let years 4 and 5 sit where they are, unless of course something happens? Would that just be a transfer from the
Yeah, it would
general
just be a-
fund into that?
Yeah, it would just be a transfer.
Okay, so that would not affect what we did here.
No, it would just be a transfer out of those reserves over to
Okay.
capital projects.
All right.
We can do that if you would like.
I think that's a prudent for us to do that because we know things happen and it's nice to have the money put aside instead of spent on something else.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard.
Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I would like to ask Kathy a question about funding, different options in funding. I had suggested that since the Treasurer's Department had generated $15 million of additional interest earned in 23. That we use part of that to help balance the 24 budget. I understand that they're allocated to different departments, but we as a board have a right to make a change to that. And instead of allocating to different departments, take a portion of that and put it into the general fund to balance our budget for 24. My concern is with respect to the additional taxation that Kathy is proposing on the 24 budget, it looks to me like between the property tax increase and the motor fuel tax, we're actually putting about a $9.5 million additional tax burden on the residents of Kane County. And I would much prefer that we take money from the interest earned in 23 to balance the budget. I'd like Kathy to comment on that.
Well, as I mentioned on Monday, some of the interest earned by state law or county code has to remain in the funds where it's allocated. So for example, the interest earned on motor fuel tax revenue by state statute has to remain in the motor fuel tax fund. The impact fee, interest earned on our impact fees, which is there's 3 impact fee funds that the transportation department has. By county code, the interest earned on any revenue, impact fee revenue, has to be retained in those funds. So there are some funds out there that the interest cannot be moved.
I have.
Yes, I understand that. I guess the other point I wanted to make was, is it true that between the property tax increase and the motor fuel tax increase, that will burden our residents to the tune of about $9.5 million a year? Is that correct?
The additional motor fuel tax revenue that is forecasted by increasing the local county motor fuel tax from 4.7 cents per gallon to 8 cents per gallon, forecasted to bring in an additional $7 million over a 12-month period. And then the budgeted increase in the general fund property tax revenue would bring in an additional 2.4 million.
Okay, so about $9.5 million.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can, Mr. Tepe, may I make a comment on that?
Madam Chair?
We had talked previously and at Monday's meeting about sales tax levy, which is different discussion that could possibly happen. But just as a correction, and I don't argue with your math, Mr. Leonard, at all. But I was also doing a little bit of math yesterday, as a matter of fact, doing a little mental exercise. And I brought in 2 quarters and a dime, 60 cents. If you were to fill up your gas tank, 15 gallons of gas weekly, it would cost a consumer 60 cents a week. That's what it would be. $2.40 a month if you were going to fill up your car once a week with 15 gallons of gasoline. But I'm saying it is a sales tax that is not germane simply to Kane County residents. Anybody who may be coming here in Christmas time to shop at the Chicago Premium Outlet Mall and needs to get gasoline, people who are coming in from other areas. We have many, many tourists coming into Kane County who may stop for gasoline. They would also be paying this. So very similar, and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, that's the discretion of the board, but very similar to the sales tax levy, which you all seem to have a lot of interest in. It's no different from that. If you don't use gasoline or you choose to buy your gasoline in another county, your tax will be different. than it would be here in Kane County. So it truly is a user tax for those individuals who have efficiency in their new cars, they may have a hybrid car, electric car, they would not be paying this tax. But it came out to an additional 60 cents per week if you did 15 gallons of gasoline. So that's what the amount would be, just to put it in that equation. Thank you.
Kathy, can we go back? Can we bring up the page on the interest calculation distribution that you had?
There we go.
Yes. Okay. As has been suggested that we could allocate that interest money in a different manner than what's been allocated here. Is that correct, or is that partially correct?
I would say, I have not conducted an analysis of every single fund across the county, but I can tell you that the state motor fuel tax fund and the 3 impact fee funds that the transportation department has, which get a significant percentage of the overall allocation because they have a significant amount of the cash. Those 4 funds, the interest cannot be reallocated to any other fund. The ARPA funds, that is, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the ARPA money. And I think there's still, the state's attorney's office is still looking into that, whether that money can be used for general county spending or whether it's restricted for ARPA uses. And then the general fund, obviously, and then IMRF, Social Security. The reserves would be getting a portion of it. Capital projects would be getting a portion of it. These are the largest funds. So the interest is allocated to the funds that have the most cash. So as you can see, transportation has the most cash in the county. So I don't know if that has, I've completely.
And I
answered your
believe they've
question.
already budgeted for using those funds.
Yes, they have already, they have a 5-year transportation improvement plan, which they are required to prepare by the state of Illinois. And as someone who used to prepare it, it's typically short. When you get to the 4th and 5th year of the plan, it's short of revenues. And as you know, all these transportation projects are multi-year projects. So that would, all of that interest earned would be immediately budgeted to fill in their gaps for their projects.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this point? Ms. Juby?
I just have a procedural question. So if I had questions about the gas tax, would I not wait for the resolution for that, or do I ask them here?
Well, since that's the next subject, why don't you wait for that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, proceeding ahead, let's go to item number 24. A resolution authorizing an increase in the county motor fuel tax from 4.7 cents per gallon to 8 cents per gallon. May I have a motion to discuss?
To discuss? Motion to discuss?
Yes.
I move we discuss.
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Now we can discuss. Ms. Juby.
Okay, we can go with me first. That's fine. So I understand the whole budget process is probably our most serious thing that we do. And that we have three main constituencies to consider. We have our employees, and in no particular order, we have our employees, we have our buildings, and we have our taxpayers. And no matter what we choose, we're going to make someone unhappy. But we, as Madam Chair said, we are required to take care of our buildings, which is why I would like to move more money into the specific capital fund to make sure it's there so that we can protect one of our greatest assets. I have a problem with the gas tax. I understand that you said it's 60 cents. It's not 60 cents for me. I put 75 miles a day on my car every single day. So it's not. I can't afford an electric car. I wish I could, but I can't. But I also can't afford not to put gas in my car and go somewhere. And I understand it's a user tax. I understand that, but not everybody has the same ability to pay that user tax as they do if it were on something else, which we're not discussing another form of taxation. So I will not discuss that. I am just saying that if we're going to be raising someone's property tax and we're going to be taking some money out of our budgeted reserves that we have only because we had an influx of capital funds. It's not because we did magic budgeting or anything like that. It's only because we had a gift. And I say we use that. I just have a really hard time at taxing people who just really can't afford to do that. And I don't want someone to have to choose. Well, I don't want somebody to have to move. I hear whoever you were that said you have to move, and I don't want anybody to have to move, but I don't want anybody not to eat because they have to put gas in their car. And I know that this conversation's been had, and I know that it is not a shared belief with the members of the board, but I just cannot support this form. What I can support is taking this money that we would be raising out of our reserves, because that buys us another year to try to figure out what we're going to do without it putting the whole responsibility on the taxpayers in two separate things. I also have questions about the RTA sales tax, which also I have a problem with, but it's not this, so I won't discuss it here. So I can't support this. And I have put forth an idea to come up with the other money, because I don't feel that you can say no and then not offer a solution, because that's just wrong and that's irresponsible. So I'm saying no, and I'm offering an alternative. And that's what I would like to be up for discussion. And if no one wants to discuss it, that's fine. I'll stick with my no vote then.
Discuss it. Bring it up.
I just did.
Okay. I know you and I talked last night, and I said, I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to cut anybody.
Right, no,
Okay.
I've said.
Any other comments from the board member, from the committee members first?
Lewis, permission to speak?
Ms. Lewis?
Mr. Lewis, whatever you want to call me. I don't
Ms.
care.
Lewis, Ms. Lewis.
So I second Ms. Juby's comments. I put, even myself being semi-retired, I put more than one tank full of gas in a week. Just driving back and forth in our county to meetings and things. And in my particular area of Aurora, we have a lot of people that must use their car to drive, and it is certainly more than one tank full of gas. And it's not a luxury tax, it's a necessity. And for those reasons, I cannot justify voting yes on this. So my vote will be a definite no. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Leonard speaking.
Hold on, Mr. Leonard, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the robust conversation that we had on Monday and the varying viewpoints and opinions on how this budget should look, and given some of the comments today and my own feelings as well, which are very close to those comments. In general, this committee is tasked with forwarding a balanced budget to the executive committee, and then obviously onto the full board. I'm hesitant for this body today to make any changes to this plan, simply because I do believe that it requires conversation of more of the individuals on this board. I will vote in favor of all of these resolutions today, only in the interest of forwarding it forward to the executive and full board for conversation. I do think there are a lot of ideas that still need to kind of work together and come to some real understandings of what our options look like. Sales tax is probably the biggest one that comes up over and over again as the in some ways the most sensical, logical solution to the budgetary problems that we have. Overall, I just don't feel comfortable that this committee should make large decisions, we have a balanced budget that we can forward. If we start to take things out today, it does make things a little more difficult for our finance department if it gets to county board and then we have to make some further changes. I think it's a cleaner process if we wait until that final vote. And that gives us more time to discuss this at executive and then before county board. So
I have a point of order, please. I would like to ask the state's attorney, does our ordinance, do our governing laws tell us that we are required to forward a balanced budget or create the budget?
to review and forward, I believe was the
I
language.
thought it said create. That's why I'm asking, because I think there's a difference. If we're supposed to create, this is the place where we make those changes.
Oh, I'm interested in hearing her answer.
From the county code.
Mr. Frank.
If I may, do you have the code in front of you? If I may, Mr. Chair, I have the code pulled up. For finance and budget, it said this committee shall have jurisdiction over review of budget proposals as presented by standing committees and recommend a balanced budget to be forwarded to the executive committee. So it's pretty clear that's what our task is here today. And we do have a balanced budget in front of us, whether we agree with the finer details of it or not. I just think that the larger body should have this conversation before we make any big changes.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, the point that I would like to piggyback on that Ms. Juby and Ms. Lewis had mentioned was the fact that this motor fuel tax increase, and as Madam Chair said, would equate to, she believes, the average person spending 60 cents a week more on gasoline. However, if you do that over 50 weeks or 52 weeks, you're actually looking at over $30 a year, which is in excess of what actually the property tax increase would be for the average homeowner. So I think it's an excessive tax. It's one that people can't afford to pay, and I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Mr. Roth.
Roth here. Regarding that, what Mr. Sanchez had read, the very first part is review. And review to me is you review and make changes in order to get to your budget. So I think it is the responsibility of the finance committee and not to just push it, kick the can down the road. I mean, we're on a critical time frame. We're 2 to 3 months behind in our budget process. And we need to make the hard decisions sooner, not later.
Mr. Zertis.
We scheduled a special meeting on Monday to try and put this together as the 24 of us, not just the finance committee. And we had the opportunity to meet again on Tuesday if we wanted to, and that meeting was canceled. I don't, Jared, politely, I don't think we need to forward this today. And if we need to have a special meeting of the 24 to kind of grapple with this, then we should schedule that. Yeah. So just my 2 cents.
So you're in favor of a special meeting? Is that when?
I am not in favor of the increases that are here. And if we have to have another if we have to schedule a special meeting for the 24 members to discuss this and grapple with this more, then we should do it. That's our responsibility.
Okay, I tried to refrain from putting in too many of my own opinions, but I guess it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Okay. On Monday, a lot of things, the key items that were presented on Monday, I thought were very well done. And I truly applaud Kathy in particular for putting together a plan that comes close to having a balanced budget for this next year. Okay. And I thought, in my opinion, I thought that, that taking money away from the transportation department by reallocating the RTA funds was offset by the motor fuel tax. I also felt that since all of the surrounding counties have already enacted an 8-cent tax, or in the case of DuPage is charging actually more than 8 cents. That put us in line. On the other side, as many of you know, I have a fairly large email list, and I ask them for advice on occasion. And taxes is always one of the things that I ask for every year. And the more pertinent response I get is, what you're asking is you're going to increase my taxes, you're just deciding how. Okay, so in my opinion, we need more revenue. And the only way we're going to get more revenue is coming up with some kind of a tax increase. Okay, I feel that cutting county services is just an extremely unadvisable and dangerous thing. And that would be necessary if we begin to run out of reserves. Okay. But I also feel that Monday was not necessarily a surprise, but kind of opened my eyes to a couple of things. So delaying some of these decisions would not be, something that I would be opposed to in any way, shape, or form. Hope I'm making sense in there, because I might be talking against myself, but I think we need to come up with additional revenue in some way, shape, or form. Okay, that always means some kind of tax, and that always means major objections on the part of people. Okay, so with that being, what is the will? Do we want to table some of these items and schedule a special meeting, or do we want to work on them?
Louis, can I have permission to speak?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay.
Save
So,
me.
yeah, you're beyond saving, sweetie. So I was listening to Jarrett, and I was listening to you, and obviously Mr. Leonard, and I think we need to, as a finance committee, say what we believe. So I think we need to vote on these individually. And then if we vote no to some of these revenues, then Kathy will have to go back, or whoever, and look at, like to me, I'll be voting a combination of yes and no. It's a la carte to me. But I would also like to know, after we vote, when I vote no on this, how much of that interest income can we actually use? I know that we've heard we can't use this, we can't use that, but I didn't get the final number of what it was we could actually move. If out of the 15 million, we can take 6 of it, or we can take 3, or I didn't get that final number. And also, if, as we pick and choose what we do here, then what will we end up taking from reserves? So I would kind of like to see executive have maybe a couple, go back to a couple options to look at.
I think it's time to call on Mr. Frank. If we vote some of these items down and do not put forth a balanced budget, what are our options and requirements?
SEO Frank, the way I read the standing committee for finance and budget is that you have to recommend a balanced budget. So whatever you put forward to executive, according to this way it reads, it needs to be one that is recommended by the finance committee as a balanced budget. So I think it's a question of whether or not, by taking the votes that you take, ultimately, are you putting forward a balanced budget? If you are not, then this committee would be tasked with doing so, at least as it reads according to the Kane County Code.
So if we were to, since we can only vote on items that are on the agenda, okay, if we were to defeat some of these items and not have a balanced budget, we would then have to schedule a meeting between now and next Wednesday to deal with that issue and come up with a way to have a balanced budget. Is that correct?
At least is the way I read the language. Yes, that would be correct.
Can,
Madam Chair?
just, and I totally support what SAO Frank just said. There is a logistics issue, a staffing issue, just to be able to put the paperwork together, to present it, and to put that out to the public so that everyone has access to the decisions made by this committee. And perhaps Savannah can tell us how many days, if we're going to be scheduling another meeting, potentially, how many days will you need to process all of this so that it can be posted in a timely manner for the executive committee meeting? Oh, hold on a second, please. Do you have any idea? Is it 3 days that you need?
Personally, I would need 2 to 3 days, but then it all depends on reports and stuff from the departments and getting all that together.
Why would you need extra time?
So,
No comment.
thank you, Savannah. So let's just, I'm sorry, before, if I could. So today is Wednesday. So if we were going to have such a meeting, we probably would have to have it perhaps tomorrow. If you're not
Can't have
ready
it
to
tomorrow, we
complete
can't
all of
notice
this.
it for 48 hours.
Well, then
You
Friday
can
morning.
adjourn this meeting.
What was that?
You can adjourn this meeting.
And
We can
continue to
adjourn.
tomorrow,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. That, thank you for that. So it would have to be tomorrow so that staff can do the appropriate processing.
Hey, Mr. Sanchez?
Yeah, I was again recommending that we just forward it along simply because of that timeline issue and we do want to have a balanced budget coming out of this committee. If we are to vote against today, the motor fuel tax and RTA revenue options, then when we go to the draft budget to be placed on public display, we can amend that to backfill those revenues with the fund balances that we have, which is not an option I prefer, but I think I agree with Ms. Juby in that regard. So if we are going to eliminate items, we can, after that, recommend that more fund balances be used to cover that gap. So we'd have a balanced budget going forward. We don't need another meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Juby?
Well, I have a question to one of the state's attorneys. If we choose to not put forth two funding mechanisms, then technically it is not a balanced budget. So we would have to vote no on that unless we took a vote to fill that gap today, correct? Because otherwise we would vote to send forward a budget that was missing two revenue streams, which is not a balanced budget.
I believe, let me do this from the chair. I believe what Mr. Sanchez said was that we could amend any of these items with alternative methods for
Today.
funding.
So we would be
We
deciding.
would be altering the plan that had been put forth by our finance director, okay? And sending on a different set of rules to the executive committee. A different set of options, I should say, to the executive committee.
So we would be determining at this meeting what our secondary funding source would be, correct? I just want to be clear that we're.
Potentially,
Okay,
potentially,
so,
yes.
so if we didn't take our RTA sales tax and we didn't take our gas tax and we couldn't come into consensus about taking money out of the reserves,
Then we're gonna have to have a special meeting.
then we have to have the special meeting. Okay, so I think then our discussion should be about whether we would like to entertain discussing other mechanisms to do that.
I think we can. I don't think we're limited.
I'm
to that.
just trying to make it like be legal.
Wait, which one?
It just real quick, and property tax, because that was a suggestion that's on the table as well. The CPI.
Mr. Chair, Leonard, please.
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I was just thinking, before we discuss alternative options, I think we have to vote on these options to see if they're going to pass or not first, the ones that we have on the agenda.
I think, but I think the discussion is not only voting on them, but then the fact that we can alter the way they are. When we get back to items 1 and 2, which we moved, 1, 2, and 3, which we moved, that we can come up with alternative methods for funding. Is that right, Mr. Frank?
Frank SAO, the concern I have is that any final action that you guys take in this committee is then theoretically moved to the executive.
Correct.
And so if you were to make changes after the fact, that would not be a final action. It's not really something you have the availability to do. So anything you're going to do that relates to the budget, if it's going to go to exec, it needs to be balanced before it goes to exec. So in other words, if you want to do the cost of living wage increase, and if that unbalances the budget, then it's not a vote theoretically that you can take a final action on. So it probably may be a better opportunity for all of you to vote this up one way or down instead of a piecemeal approach, but that's your choice.
I just add,
Can I ask?
Ms. Hopkins.
Yeah, I want to, so, just the conversation when people are talking about a balanced budget. So this budget is already funded with reserves. So technically, it's not even balanced, because balanced is we have new revenues matching expenses. We are already using reserves to balance this budget. And yes, items number 24 and 25 go hand in hand. As I see it, the way that I put the budget together, if you didn't have the motor fuel tax increase, then you couldn't take the RTA sales tax from transportation. And to the questions about people have had about taking 2023 revenues and using 2023 revenues to balance the 2024 budget, well, that's essentially what reserves are. Reserves are, so whether it's additional anything, additional tax, additional interest income, anything that goes to your, call it the bottom line, is excess revenues over expenses, that is your reserve. So for 2024, anything that we are earning in 2023 that is in excess of the county's expenses is considered a reserve. So that if what you're suggesting, we would then be using reserves to continue to balance the budget, which is what the county has done for the last several years. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. I think we understand that.
Yep.
Everybody did. Okay. Yes, sir.
yeah, Shepro,
Mr. Shepro?
I just wanted to clarify or perhaps add to what Mr. Frank said, is that you have an obligation to forward a balanced budget, but I suppose you have a policy choice. I mean, the use of reserves is not forbidden to balance the budget. That's a policy decision for how you want to do it. One of the great mysteries of government budgeting is you can change your revenue assumptions. In theory, you could say, we're going to balance the budget by lottery winnings. It might not be very realistic. Theoretically, you would say we have a balanced budget. But to the point that was made, I think, by several speakers, is that you also have to bear in mind that you have statutory deadlines and that notice requirements, et cetera. And that, yes, you can kick the can down the road, but your options may be limited if you get to the end of the road and you want to do something different and you don't have the legal time in which to do it. My understanding is that there are still questions being researched or questions being asked about the allocation of interest. I think, we have an answer about the motor fuel tax money. In discussing with transportation after the meeting on Monday, I don't know that they are clear at this point. Most of what transportation has, or a great deal of it, is grant money. And I don't know that anybody has looked at the grant agreements to see if there are restrictions about the use of interest on the grant funds.
Okay, Mr. Frank?
One more quick thing about the balanced budget concept. While she may be correct that it is a balanced budget paying for reserves, that's not the proposal before you. So the proposal before you must be balanced that for you to forward it to executive. So if you all decide to take the reserve money and use that as a revenue source, that would be something you would need to be forwarding to exec. It would have to be something, however you decide to do it, that would be something that you need to do and decide here in this committee today, rather than forwarding it on. Again, your actions are different from your purposes stated. So by taking a final action and putting forward a proposal of a budget that is not balanced would not be allowed, as opposed to if you guys all decide today to do it a different way and come up with a balanced budget and put it forward, that would be legal.
Madam Chair?
I had no comment right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought you. Let's vote on number 34
24?
or number 24. Put my glasses back on.
It's okay. I thought I missed something.
Juby,
Should we know?
Lewis,
Technically, the motion that was made was to discuss and not approve.
Oh,
So you discussed it. I think you would require another motion at this point to approve.
motion to approve.
Can I have a motion to approve?
Juby.
Juby makes the motion.
Lewis will
Lewis will
second.
second. Call the question, please.
Juby,
Juby, no.
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges, Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Does not pass 5-1.
Okay. May have a motion and a second to discuss the resolution amending the Kane County financial policies regarding RTA sales tax allocation, changing the allocation from 25% to 50% of the funds going to the general fund for public safety. May I have a motion?
Juby moves.
Juby moves,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Any discussion?
Yes. I have discussion.
Okay. All right. You ready? All right.
Excuse me,
Call the-
I have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see your arm behind us.
I'm sorry. I could stand up.
No.
Okay. So one of the issues I had with us taking money away from the transportation fund, which I have said to you multiple times when we had conversations, is I am not aware, or I'm not sure if that's going to jeopardize matching funds. I also know that they, as you know, they do long-term budgeting. So I'm not comfortable taking away money from them that I will then have to make up through another form. And I would like to leave them with the budgeting they had so that they can go forward with the projects, the long-term projects that they budgeted for. And so I understand we also need to give more money to our judicial and our public safety, which is on us. We need to find a revenue stream for that, but I don't think it needs to be on the back of the general fund or on the back of the transportation fund, which puts it back on the back of the taxpayer. So I would, that is why I'm not for this. I don't support this.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Leonard, please.
Mr. Leonard,
Yes, I think this actual item can't even be considered because we don't have a way of funding it back to the transportation department. I think it was mentioned earlier that if we voted down the motor fuel tax increase, this other one went hand in hand with it. So I guess we have a right to discuss it, but I don't see where it's relevant because there isn't a way to fund that money leaving the RTA sales tax and transportation. Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick response to that comment. I believe if we were to still take RTA away from transportation, that would just mean they have a smaller budget. I don't think we're required to keep their budget at the same level. I could be corrected differently if that's the case. To me, the real discussion, this is a good plan for this year, for this budget year. It's not a great plan because as Ms. Hopkinson pointed out, it still uses reserve money, fund balances, and that's what we want to move away from as a county. The lingering question that I've seen come up over the years is, okay, we can pull something off for this budget year, but how about for the next 3 years? How about for the next 5 years? And so that's why the conversation about the sales tax revenue continues to be relevant. It is something that can provide us the level of revenue that we truly are seeking. People talk about making cuts. if we were to really start digging into cuts, and I haven't seen any really organized, concerted effort to do this, we would have to really start with the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's office, the courts, places a lot of people don't want to make cuts. Those are the big parts of our budget. There's not much we can do to cut IT, HR. Public health is mostly funded on its own. I mean, there are so few areas that we can truly make cuts that are outside of the judicial branch. And I don't think that the general public and even maybe some board members realize that. So I think the serious conversation we need to have is looking more long-term. Are we going to go after an RTA sales tax? And if we are, what is the plan? What is the strategy that we're going to employ to get us there? Because if we pass a motor fuel tax this year, that could be detrimental to an effort to suggest that we go for an RTA sales tax next year. So I just think that the conversation we really need to have focused on is how we're going to fund long-term, not just this budget year. So that is why I'm opposed to the motor fuel tax and moving RTA money away from transportation. Because I think we need to figure out that strategy first of what's long-term. So because of those reasons, that's why I'm voting against these two resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Lewis?
Ms. Lewis?
Yes, so I absolutely agree with everything Jared said. I do not feel comfortable moving this particular item because we have been warned over and over by our experts that that's a bad move because of the matching funds. So I will be voting no on this, but I do believe that eventually we do have to decide what kind of a sales tax we do want to go for and put a referendum out there for now, but that's not today's discussion.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Lewis, for your comments about that. There is something called a conservative form of budgeting. And I think we're all proponents of it. And what basically that means is that you count the money in hand rather than the speculative money that you may have. Now, the speculative money that we're all talking about is this countywide sales tax that was presented to you last year. And the board decided not to move forward with it. And now it's actively discussed for potential revenue. But you can't count the eggs until you get the chicken, and the chicken hasn't even been bought yet. So I would caution this committee and the full board not to consider the sales tax because it has to go out to our public for a referendum. We haven't even polled them to see if they desire this or not. We don't know what option of the three options, if they so chose to do this, what option they would choose. It is their choice, not our choice, not the board's choice of where to go forward, because it's their tax that they're putting upon themselves. And each one of those tax levies are restricted to that specific element. It's not for the general fund. It goes specifically to that area, whether it's public safety, mental health is one of those, or capital. All three, and only those three, not for the general fund. So this does not address those core issues that you're speaking about. It'll enhance the opportunity for judicial public safety or mental health or capital. But we don't know if they even want it because it's their choice.
I just have a comment.
Okay. Ms.
I
Juby?
appreciate what you were saying, but you're talking about something that we're not talking about right now.
Can't
We're
you-
not talking about implementing a retail sales tax. And I think that it's confusing to people who maybe are listening to us with what you just added. We're not voting on that now. Right. But I don't think that was made clear. I think it's clear to us because we've had those conversations before, but I just wanted clarification that we're not asking people, we're not telling them we're going to be going to referendum for this thing. I don't want to muddy the waters of what we're doing right now. We're just trying to decide on a reallocation of the RTA sales tax that we already have been given.
And I would concur with what you just said, but please don't bring up the sales tax, which I believe.
didn't.
No, but other board members have, Ms. Juby.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Let's call a vote.
Juby?
No.
Lewis?
Lewis, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Tepe.
Tepe, no.
Does not pass.
Now we will go back to items 1, 2, and 3. So may I have a motion on resolution approving the fiscal year 24 draft budget to be placed on. Hold on. Which one of these three should we tackle first?
I think number 3,
Yeah,
I think.
let's go to number 3. Well, chair's prerogative. How's that? We'll go to number 3, a resolution adopting a tax levy for the general fund of $35,706,950. May I have a motion in a second?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Should be seconds.
Juby seconds. Discussion, please.
I have a clarification question. How much money did we say we weren't going to vote for? So we did 6 million from the RTA sales tax, a little over 6 million.
$276,293. It's on that
Okay.
one slide for
And-
general fund.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't remember it. And what was the amount that we voted down when we did the gas sales tax? That was 700,000,
7 million,
7 million?
7,147,969.
Okay, so we were looking at approximately trying to make up $14 million right now.
Oh, no, we would just, based on what has just happened, we would just, for the transportation department, we would remove an increase in their budget of $7 million for local option motor fuel tax. But then we would put back 6.2 million in RTA sales tax revenue, and then the general fund would be short an additional $6.2 million.
Okay, so we need to come up with $6.2 million in order to send forth a balanced budget, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The tax levy is different than the budget. It's two different concepts.
We still need to make up money, though.
I have a question for finance. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sanchez here.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yeah, with the tax levy, that's gonna remain the same amount no matter how we get there, correct? So we don't have to make any amendments based on our previous votes to this one. That would just come at the budget.
Right, the
placed on
property
public
tax
display.
levy is a completely separate from the RTA and motor fuel.
So where would we modify an item to, an item number 2? Okay,
Yes,
so let's take a roll call on
Can I ask
item.
another question? I have one more question.
Sure.
Let's go ahead. You go ahead. I'll ask.
Mr. Surges?
So on item 3 for the tax levy general fund, this is including the increase in property tax. This is the item that has that. I guess I'm looking
Yes.
at Kathy.
yes.
Okay.
Are you done? So,
So good.
so my question is, what was that percentage that's built in here? 3.2?
Oh, it probably,
3.6?
I don't know that this percentage increase, once extended, will not generate a truth in
So
taxation hearing.
it's less than
under-
5,
It's
more like 4?
4.4.
4.4? And, okay. All right.
If I can pigtail on that,
Mr. Sanchez,
That's not me.
or I'm sorry, Mr. Surges.
We look like.
I'll take that.
So like,
Is in the bucket for this property tax. We continue to talk about 2 different buckets, levy for new versus existing. Where are we at? Are we raising just the new? Are we raising both? Is that percentage just an aggregate number of the 2?
I would say it's an aggregate based on the extension, and the extension would cover both existing property and new property.
If I could ask a general are we at the max for the new? Or are we below what it could be? What within our powers?
We're
I would
below on both.
That's what
I-
I thought.
Yeah, I mean, this dollar amount would not generate a truth in taxation hearing. So it's below
Okay.
5%.
I think that answers my question.
Okay,
I have another question. I'm sorry,
we need,
Mr.
Where-
Chair.
where are we on resolution 3? Did you take the vote yet?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Sturgis, I know that we've had previous conversations where you said you may be favorable to capturing new growth, which is irresponsible of us to not capture new growth because that puts the burden on the people that have had to pay before. I also have an understanding that you're maybe not favorable to passing the CPI amount that we have talked about. Is there a way that we can break new construction out of the CPI? Or do we have to vote up or down for both of them?
No, well, you have to, when you do the calculation, you're applying the CPI percentage to the existing property. And then you generate a new tax rate, and then you apply that new tax rate to both the existing property plus the new property. And you come up with a new amount. And when you come up with the new amount, that is the total tax extension. And that is where the extension can exceed the consumer price index. So when I have done the calculations, I have applied the consumer price index to the existing property to generate a new rate. But then when you apply the new rate to the new growth, you come up with a percent that exceeds the 5%, which would generate a truth in taxation hearing. But the way that I did the calculation for the general fund budget, I included both existing property and new property to come up with an amount that we would be below 5%.
Yeah, I
Can they be broken out?
I think my question was, because when we were presented that we have an option of taking full CPI, taking only new property, taking full CPI and new property, and taking a smaller CPI, we were always given the option of doing new property separately. And I'm kind of drilling down to where people don't want to increase. And if everyone is saying, yes, I'm okay capturing new growth, which is our responsibility to do, then I think that that's a separate component. And then we have to add on, are they willing to increase for the CPI? I'm just trying to figure out how to not muddy the waters and drill down so we have something where we know what we have to work on.
Right, and I think if you did that up to the CPI, you would end up, once you did the tax extension, with a percent that would generate a truth in taxation.
That's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, I don't know how else to articulate. Cliff, you know what I'm
I've
asking?
tried it 3 times. You're exactly
Okay.
what I'm
Thank,
saying.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you all. Please address the chair and
Okay, so Vern, can we break it out? Can we break we can.
I believe it would be best for you to have this discussion offline. Okay?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess when we talk about the new growth, I think that it's perhaps people don't really understand what that means. If you don't take the new growth and you didn't do a levy increase, it's not like the new growth doesn't get a tax bill. They'll get a tax bill, but everybody's tax bill will go down because you have not extended the levy by the amount of the new growth in the tax base of the county. So if you wanted to just increase the levy by enough to cover that new growth, you would, if that number is 700,000, then the levy would be last year's levy plus the amount that has been determined to be the new growth. So you could do that. Or you can add to that by increasing the levy by a larger amount. But if you were going to do that, you would have to make an appropriate amendment to the proposed levy ordinance to take that into account.
Yeah, essentially, since 2017, the county has been doing just that. They have just been bringing in, there's no CPI, and they're just extending the tax rate or the existing levy to the existing property plus the new property. And so the actual tax rate has been going down in the county over the years because you're just spreading the same levy across more property. And so that's what the county's been doing for the last 5-6 years. And it's been bringing in anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000.
Okay, can we please vote on number 3?
Juby,
May I have a clarification? This is to vote for the 4.4 CPI increase and new growth.
Yes,
That's what I'm voting on.
yes.
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, no.
Leonard, Mr. Leonard. Okay, and Tepe.
Tepe, yes. Okay,
Passes.
now let's move to item 2. An ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2024 annual appropriations and budget. May I have a motion and a second?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
30 seconds.
Doobie seconds. Discussion.
I have a
This is
question.
where you want to put in your amendment.
If-
Mr. Sanchez.
It's where we would put in the amendment. This looks like it's just a schedule for appropriations.
Yes.
So it does go here, or it goes in number 1, the amendment goes?
Goes in here.
Where in here would it go?
Pardon?
Where in here would it go?
You make an amendment.
But where would it go in here?
We asked the finance director.
You need to add an amendment for the funding source that you want to talk about. That you want to have included.
There is no funding source mentioned in here.
That's why you
That's why you
add
need an
an amendment.
So how could we have done it before with no funding source mentioned in here?
Okay.
Well, I would just say the entire budget is there, the whole general fund with all the different revenue sources, all the special revenue
Okay.
funds with all their revenue sources. I think what you're just suggesting is to switch out one revenue source for another,
Okay,
for using our reserves.
so
our
are we
fund balance.
taking, I'm sorry, are we taking a number from 1 through 8 out, or are we adding a number 9?
You're switching out, because right now, the general fund budget as presented to you right now includes $6.2 million in additional RTA sales tax revenues. So it would just be replacing 6.2 million of RTA sales tax revenues with fund balance with reserves.
Under which number?
That
I believe it was 6.2 million.
No, on page 155, which number are we amending?
Oh,
Which
you mean
item
in the
number?
actual
Res-
budget document?
Yes.
It's on the first page of the general fund.
This is. what we're-
It's line item under other taxes, 001,000,000.30105, sales tax RTA.
We're talking about what's on page 155, which is what we made the motion to discuss. And my question was, which one of 1 through 8 are we substituting to make up the difference?
Mr. Frank.
Byrne, the state's attorney.
Ms. Frank. Mr. Frank.
Frank SAO, I think the way to do this is to, we can just say as amended under the now therefore. Based on the amendments that are adopted, it can be changed in such a way that the part that incorporates the budget that the finance director is referring to, it could be done under the now therefore. So my office can figure out the specifics of it, but because the now therefore adopts the schedule,
Okay, so
we can fix it that way.
that's what we're amending.
Yes, you'd be amending, basically it says the schedule of appropriations and budget as detailed in the fiscal year 24 draft budget. And we would just essentially call it an amended budget. So you'd be changing the actual draft budget as well as changing the ordinance proposal, and saying as amended.
I would suggest that your amendment would say something like, I amend this to replace the amount that had been determined by the county motor fuel tax resolution and the RTA sales tax allocation be replaced by adding funds from.
Okay, I'm not comfortable with that because I think we have to adopt the budget first before we adopt this.
No.
No, we can adopt, I'm not comfortable making that amendment.
So just for clarity on this, if there's an amendment, that's a priority vote. So that goes first. If however, so basically if you were amending this such to balance the budget based on what we've done already, the changes would be made in the actual budget the actual draft budget that the finance director has provided to you. So the numbers would change, they would be done in a certain way. And then my office could change the actual proposed ordinance to an amendment so that the language would adopt the amended budget that would be changed by the finance director based on the revenue sources that you all decide to balance the budget with.
Easy for you guys, I vote first.
So again, Ms. Juby, my suggestion is that your amendment would start off with say that
I'm not going to make that amendment. I'm not comfortable making that amendment.
Okay,
I need it written down. I cannot make an amendment without it written down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this is slightly confusing. It does seem it would make more sense to just amend the budget first and then vote on this one. And if we need to include language that says amended draft budget, that seems very clean, smooth process. Is that allowable?
As amended.
Right now, the budget is simply a draft. And so any changes that are made to it needs to be incorporated into the proposed ordinance. So it's two separate changes, but are all done by an amendment. So it's a motion to amend. You tell the things that you want to change. I've kind of given you a brief description of how that would happen. If it's adopted by this standing committee, then those things can be done. But as it stands right now, the ordinance is simply just saying the way the draft proposal that's been provided to you as incorporated. So we're changing the incorporation language and the finance director would have to change the actual to like an amended draft budget, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I just don't understand what actual text amendments would happen on this resolution. It
That's my
seems that it
question.
just includes the fact that there is a budget that exists that was passed. And so I'm curious what actual text changes to this resolution would occur. Seems all the action that happened in the budget resolution. And this just is an automatic, yeah, whatever's in that budget, this is what's applied.
we now need to augment the amount coming from another source in order to replace these funds.
Right,
So
but there is
that's
no,
what needs to be added in. And as you know, Mr. Frank is saying, they'll go back and rework it to where it's all back in there. And then there will have to be a resolution that relates to that new revenue source.
yeah, there's just no numbers on this one. So it just seems it's automatically whatever's in the draft budget that we vote on today will be included in this.
So
That
So think of the draft budget as incorporated into this. So the language that would be specifically changed, the finance director, if you guys want to take a minute, we can get to the specifics, which is the finance director can look at the specific things that may need to change based on what you guys might be proposing. I can look at the specific language that would need to change. I'm pretty sure what I told you earlier would be what we would have to do on our end. And then that could be the actual formal amendment if you want to go that direction. The other option you have is to table it or amend it in such a way and have it brought at the next meeting, or if you want to bring it again, give us some time, it can be brought. But as it stands right now, that would create some other issues. So you have some options before you. But if you want a specific language amendment, it's going to take the finance director and I a little bit of time if you want to table it for a minute and give us some time to try to get something concrete. But again, that will change based on what you decide you want to amend.
How much
Let's-
time?
Kathy, please.
From a mechanical standpoint, just changing this one item, it won't take that much time. I mean, we're just switching out in the general fund. We're just replacing 6.2 million of RTA sales tax revenue with fund balance. That's one move. And then in the transportation department, it's switching out those. I mean, mechanically, it's not that difficult. I think the bigger question is everything else in the budget the same? And we're just switching just those revenue items.
That's fine with me.
Clear as Louisiana mud.
Recess for 10 minutes.
May I have a motion to recess for 10 minutes?
So moved.
Moves,
And this
Jeff
is going to be,
seconds,
Sanj, I heard Judy say something.
or Jimmy seconds. Okay,
ready
all
to
in
go.
favor?
okay.
Middle of motion. We were in discussion.
Why?
Well, there was one vote,
Motion to
yes.
recess during discussion.
The only person who voted aye was Judy. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah, that's not good stuff.
Because we're gonna be here for a while.
Are we?
Yes, yes. Hold on a second. Let people go.
Start bringing pillows. We must have an addiction. Talking what's overstrength.
Pardon? Do you want to just call me when we go back on and I'll
No.
just explain everything, or you
No.
go? You want
I'll
to take
do
care of it?
I'll do it.
You do it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've had relatives that were to do that their whole lives and then died at 70.
All right. Can we reconvene with a roll call?
All right. Juby,
Should be here.
Lewis,
Lewis present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Surges,
Surges is here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman, Tepe.
Deppie, here.
You have quorum?
Okay, the state's attorney and the finance director are working on coming up with the proper resolution information, and we'll have it ready for us. So in the meantime, we're going to move on to new business, and we will come back and finish these resolutions. So let's go on to new business, item A, 9A. A resolution authorizing the fiscal year 23 budget adjustment and transfer from the tax sale and air fund to the general fund in the amount of $89,247.
Sanchez moves.
Should be second.
Juby second. Any discussion?
Hope not.
Roll call, please.
Did he look at me when he said that?
No. No.
Yes.
I'm not- No, we're good. I'm just saying, I hope not. Just
Oh, okay.
9A.
Yep, sorry, 1491.
Sprung this on you.
Wait, do we have a quorum in the room?
Yes.
But who's on our committee? It's been a
Got
long
3
day.
pages to go
Why
through.
can't I find this?
So we have Juby,
Madam Chair is here.
Juby, Sanchez, where's Surges?
He was here.
Oh,
he's-
okay. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's already on human service.
Okay, this is on 9A.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item B, a resolution authorizing a contract with Spear Financial Incorporated for financial advisor services. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Sanchez moves.
Lewis will second.
Need to find it.
Okay, discussion. What is this item for?
Whose department is that coming from?
That is from finance and budget came directly to us.
We are, I thought we were fine.
Pardon? 9B,
TMP 231329, authorizing a
9A.
contract with Spirit Financial.
Is Dale on? Do you know that?
I don't think so.
Kathy wanted to talk to that.
I read over this and had some questions on it. Yes.
Burn one sec. Is that renewal of that? That renewal of that? Their contract? Mr. Chair, Surges.
Yes, Mr.
For
Surges.
item B resolution, I've just been made aware that this is for our bond counsel and it is renewal of their service agreement.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Fund
you.
advisor.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's
I'm
call
sorry, that's
question,
the council. I
please.
meant advisor. Yes.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item C, authorization to enter into a contract extension for the annual audit services with Baker Tilly and US LLP in the amount of $146,430.
Sanchez moves.
Surges seconds.
Sanchez moves, Surges seconds. Any discussion? Okay, call the question, please.
Juby,
Rui,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
thank you.
Yes. Item D, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with McHenry County for juvenile detention services.
Surges moves.
Sanchez
Moves.
seconds.
Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? Call the question, please.
Juby,
Rui,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item E, a
Mr.
resolution
Chairman,
authorizing.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was disconnected for a period of time, and I was wondering if you had voted on the property tax levy. And if you had, I would like to ask permission to vote on that. I'm voting no.
I'm sorry, on which one?
It would be item
Property
2.
tax,
I'm too.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, while you were disconnected, that has been
Yes.
moved to the end of the meeting. They're working on.
okay.
No, it was voted down.
Okay,
Voted
if I
down.
could, on record, I'd just like to have my vote recorded as a no.
Item 2,
No, SEO Frank, he's talking about item number 3, adopting a tax levy for the general fund. That was voted
Yes.
in approval, Mr. Leonard, while you were out.
So it was
Okay,
4
so
to
that was
1.
approved. Okay,
you want to
on
record a
that,
no
if I-
vote on that?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay,
Can't
we
vote.
maybe have it. Where was I?
Sorry about that.
Item E.
Okay, D, item E. A resolution. Sorry, did we vote on item D?
I don't think we voted on
Did
it.
into E.
No.
It's juvenile. We
You
did
voted
into
on
E.
juvenile.
Yes, we did.
Okay, item E.
We're on E.
A resolution authorizing an agreement for Microsoft Enterprise licensing for operating system software in the amount of $430,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Juby second.
Juby seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Rui,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item F, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Tyler Technologies for computer-aided dispatch call for service export interface in the amount of $45,072.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Lewis, seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Rui,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item G, a resolution authorizing a contract for delinquent tax notice printing, preparation and mailing services for the Kane County Collector in the amount of $35,982.
Sanchez,
Surges move.
Sanchez
Burgess
seconds.
moves, Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? Madam Chair?
Yes, please. What budget line is this coming out of? Is this coming out of the treasurer's budget or is it coming out of the general fund?
it doesn't say.
I would expect it out of the treasurers, but
Bob,
I do not know. I would assume it's coming out of the treasurer's budget,
I don't know.
but
That I don't know. Just perhaps when,
we postpone this till later.
yes, please, or with Ms. Hopkinson comes back, it has to be passed. I mean, obviously we have to,
I know it was discussed in
Process
a
it.
prior committee, but I don't
That's
remember
what I thought. And I
the
thought-
answer.
I thought it was the treasurer.
Public service. It was in. public
Thank you. Yeah, it
service.
was public service.
Mr. Leonard, do you recall?
I can't offhand. I'm not really in a position to review anything. Thank you.
Okay,
Jared, are you public service?
Yeah, and I don't know the specific answer. My understanding is that it does not come from the general fund and that it comes from the treasurer's budget.
That was my understanding as well, Jared, from that same meeting.
we'll come back to that one, okay? So item H, a resolution authorizing contract agreement with One Hope United for multi-system therapy services in the amount of $230,200.
Juby moves.
Juby moves,
Lewis will second.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item I, a resolution authorizing a contract for Kane County Yellow House Restoration and Renovation Project in the amount of $324,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Juby seconds.
Juby seconds.
May I have a
Any
comment?
discussion?
I have a comment.
Ms. Juby?
Could we stop referring to it as the Yellow House and start calling it the Cole Pope House, please? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you at all.
I asked if we stop referring to it by its color as the Yellow House, but refer to it as the Cole Pope House, which is what it is known in Geneva for as. If you say Yellow House in Geneva, it could be any house, but if you say Cole Pope, everyone knows who it is. Just asking for it to be recognized, that's all.
Or she wants money.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye. No, it hasn't always. been
Lewis?
Yellow House.
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard. Mr. Leonard. Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item J, a resolution authorizing a contract with Hay and Associates, Inc. for civil engineering services for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail in Kane County in the amount of $250,000.
Surges moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Leonard. Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item K, a resolution authorizing a contract with Gilmore Marketing Concepts, Inc. for marketing services for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail and agritourism in Kane County in the amount of $100,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Juby
Surges
seconds.
3 seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item L, a resolution approving fiscal year 24 operations and maintenance agreement with USGS for the stream and rainfall gauges in the amount of $69,260.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Surges seconds.
Surges seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item M, a resolution authorizing a contract for Kane County garage door repair and maintenance in
Sanchez.
the amount of
moves.
$100,000. Sorry, Sanchez moves,
Lewis will second.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
passes.
Item N, a resolution authorizing a contract amendment with Paymentus Corporation.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Can I ask who motioned that?
Juby.
Sanchez, thank you. Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Steffi, yes.
Passes.
Item O, a resolution authorizing an agreement extension for architect, engineer, and construction manager at risk services contract.
I'd like to make a motion to move this back to the administration meeting on 11:15 at 10 a.m.
I'm sorry, what?
I'd like to make a motion to move this back to the administration committee meeting on 11:15 at 10 a.m.
Hold on, okay? Let me read this again. A resolution authorizing an agreement extension for architect, engineer, and construction manager at risk services contracts. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to,
I'm
Determine
making
what
a
to do.
motion to send it back to the committee per building management.
so instead, okay,
You don't approve it, you move it back to committee. Yeah. Right, she's motioning to move back. to committee.
I'm motioning to move it back out of this committee, back to the admin committee that meets on
admin
11:15.
committee.
Didn't I say that?
So she's made a motion. If there's a second, you go through the normal course. If it's denied, then you can move forward with the question.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Surge, a second, discussion.
Oh, I think we should let Mr. Fonstock explain why he asked for this motion.
Mr.
Good morning, Roger Fonstock
Roger.
from Building Management. The resolution has a couple of things that finance and purchasing want us to add to it, and rather than trying to amend it on the floor, it is being processed early. So we would just take it back to admin, add those things and bring it back through the process. We're probably 3 or 4 months early on the renewal, so we have time to do that. And rather than amending it on the floor, we thought it'd be better to do it committee. Most of it is related to names on the resolution, and then also the term. We're trying to specify the exact term. It's a 1-year renewal, and finance and purchasing want us to have that specific language in the resolution. So we're going to add that, take it through admin, and you'll see it in about a month.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
UBI.
Lewis,
Lucius,
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes. Item P, a resolution authorizing a contract extension with FSI for CMS facility management software.
Sanchez moves.
Amount of $25,000, sorry, Sanchez
My
moves.
bad, I'm quick today.
2 seconds.
UB seconds, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
UBI.
Lewis,
Lucius,
Sanchez,
Sanchez,
yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes. Item Q, a resolution authorizing a contract extension for Mill Creek SSA turf fertilization / weed control services in the amount of $18,225.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis a second.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
UBI.
Lewis,
Lucius,
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes.
Passes.
Item R, a resolution authorizing extension for Mill Creek SSA Parkway tree and stump removal services in the amount of $60,000.
So moved.
Sanchez.
Lewis
seconds.
moves, Sanchez seconds.
Actually, Juby, but
Any discussion?
I can be anybody you want today. It's fine.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Or Lewis, I.
Lewis,
Lewis or Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes.
Passes.
Item S, a resolution authorizing a contract extension for Mill Creek SSA Parkway Tree Services in the amount of $20,456.80.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Juby
Lewis
second.
second.
Juby seconds.
Juby Lewis second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lucius,
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes. Item T. I still have my voice just in case everybody wanted to know, you know. Item T, a resolution authorizing a contract extension for the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel for the Kane County Division of Transportation, Sheriff's Department, Building Management, City of Aurora, and the Kane County Forest Preserve District.
Juby moves.
Juby moves,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item U.
What?
It's various. It depends upon the department that gets it. It's an agreement for a certain amount for a certain rate per gallon that varies depending upon what type of fuel is utilized. Did that answer? I'm sorry, that came from didn't come from the board. I just answered it. Item U.
That's fine.
A resolution authorizing executive of collective bargaining agreement between the County of Kane, Kane County Sheriff, and Policemen's Benevolent Labor Committee, the Kane County Sheriff's Office Civilians Unit. About 50 pages long.
Sanchez moves.
Juby seconds.
Okay, any discussion? Yes, Madam Chair.
To my understanding and to the compliments of the sheriff, he is able to take this contract and there's no additional cost to the general fund because he already has this in his budget. So there will be no additional impact upon the general fund for this year or for next year, to my belief.
And as I say, it's about 50 pages long, so. Okay. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item V, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the DCEO Tourism Attraction Grant in the amount of $270,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Burgess seconds.
Surges seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item W. A resolution authorizing acceptance of the DCEO Travel and Tourism Grant in the amount of $100,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Burgess seconds.
Surges seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Passes.
Item X, resolution amending the Kane County fiscal year 2024 budget policy.
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Juby.
Juby moves,
All
Sanchez
numbers
seconds.
Up to you.
Believe this is on the,
The number of months for the reserve.
It's 3 months, so it's 3 months.
It's the reserve amount.
this is on the 90-day reserve,
Correct.
putting both policies in alignment.
That,
Okay.
Well, why does this say 6 months?
Well, it was.
That's what it was. That's what it is.
Mhm. It was, if I may, this was part of your finance policy. And we've just amended this, you have just amended this potentially to align with our ordinance. This will relieve the reserve fund by 3 months, having additional money in the reserves, because this will not have to, in the general fund, I'm sorry, opportunity for the general fund will not have to be in the reserves.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item Y, a resolution amending the Kane County financial policies to consolidate 4 reserve funds.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Surges seconds.
Surges seconds. Any discussion? Madam Chair?
If there's no discussion from the board, I think that this is an excellent idea that was brought forward by Kathy Hopkinson. What this does is allows full disclosure of what these funds are about, all going into the one fund so that we can best manage and oversee what that actual amount is, rather than being put into to reserve funds that were established by a board, not this board, but previous boards, where they can sometimes languish. So this brings it all together under one management opportunity, so we can see actually what's in those funds.
Oh,
I just want to make sure with
Judy.
our state's attorney that this is not going to get us into any difficulty. I'm not allowed to ask him. I have to ask him, so.
That's correct protocol.
Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephen Ford from the State's Attorney's Office. From my perspective, as Madam Chair said, these 4 reserve funds were created by prior boards through resolution at different times. So here, this would just be amending the financial policies to essentially put them under one reserve policy. I'm not aware of any state statute that requires these funds to exist. Again, they were created by prior county boards for the purposes of tracking and accounting for reserve funds for purposes that those boards created. So this would be this board making that decision or directing the finance department to account for these reserves that way.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Juby,
I.
Lewis,
Rose, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Item Z. We might be done with the alphabet, but we're not done. Item Z, resolution, a revision to the Kane County financial policy for procurement cards.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Burgess seconds.
Surges seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Juby.
Can it be someone else for a change? I just have a question about, we're changing it. I don't know why we're adding the auditor, and I don't know if it's a system breakdown that we have or if something forced this. So if you could just explain why we're making this change,
I think I can answer those.
that'd be great.
So previously, upon becoming auditor, I did have the admin authority through some audits that was removed at my request. And as time has progressed, we've had disputes that needed to be resolved. And because I was no longer listed as an admin, there was a lot of time consumption and schedule that had to be worked together with purchasing so that I would be able to receive through their answering the security questions, me having the authority to ask questions on accounts. So we recently had a dispute that took me 10 months to resolve. And a lot of that had to do with the issue that I was not an admin on the account. So this will make it easier for the county to resolve disputes coming from the auditor, because I'm the one that receives all the information about disputes.
So I have a follow-up question. So does that mean that prior to you, so is this replacing the order of operations that we have now, is just adding? So who did this before you were, this is obviously not the one to look at.
No, of
This is
course.
the next one. Who did that before you did that? Was that purchasing that took care of all of the disputes?
No, it was still me. Oh, well,
You did
so the
disputes,
policy
now
had,
You're asking for yourself to be able to do disputes again?
so the county policy has the disputes going to the purchasing director. However, when people are paying their invoices and batches, the disputes are then also sent to me, and then I also have to reconcile disputes. So
Point of order, could you please direct it to?
yes,
the
of
chair?
course, I'm sorry. Hi. So it's just a multiple of policy being compiled. And as we're working with the new procurement cards, the setup is allowing us to have another admin on the account. So that's why this is coming about now.
Okay.
We're changing, the county has previously voted to change the procurement card from Fifth Third Bank to Chase Bank, right?
Correct.
And that process is going on now, and this adds additional capability to our system as well as additional funds that'll be coming back. Okay, roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item AA. Resolution amending the sick and personnel and extended illness leave policy to the personnel policy handbook.
Surges moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Burgess moves, Sanchez seconds. Any discussion? I don't understand why this is on the finance committee.
Jamie, do we have an idea?
Money
why
associated
came
with
to
this?
finance?
Oh, I guess there's,
There isn't a specific budget amount or anything associated with it, but anytime you're talking benefit amounts that are allocated to employees, that does have an implication
okay.
on the
Dale
productivity.
wouldn't have asked that.
finance.
okay, roll call, please.
Little levity, guys, come on.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Item
Chair,
AB.
Surges. I'm moving to postpone item AB and AC to the November 29th Finance Committee meeting. And looking for a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Why? Why?
Why? Mr. Sturgis?
Ms. Labrillo, would you like to answer at length?
We recently were notified by the state's attorney's office that there is a part of County Code 248 that makes this not able to be passed at this time. So we are reviewing that county code for a potential change. And should we be able to make that change, then we would be putting this through after that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, so the motion is to table this to the next month's meeting,
I
correct?
don't know the difference between postpone and table.
They're the same.
It's moved to,
not the
no, I
same.
don't think they're the same.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they're not the same. So it's postpone the 29th.
Definite date.
Postpone to my corrections. We can do both at the same time.
A, B, and AC, correct.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes. Item AD, a resolution authorizing the renovation of rooms 240 and 242 of the Third Street Courthouse.
Surges moves.
Sanchez seconds.
What if we vote no? They're not gonna finish?
If you scroll through the 600 or 700 pages associated with this particular meeting, there are some lovely pictures of what's going to happen in that particular area. And I hope it looks as good as the pictures when they're done. Yes, Madam Chair.
Could you please just explain what this is for, what the renovation is being used for, the purpose of it?
Mr. Frank, is it your area?
SAO Frank, indeed it is. It is an addition, 240 and 242 are essentially going to be given over to the state's attorney's office for our ever increasing staff. So this will be primarily for some of the alternative court people, which will also vacate some space for the civil offices up in the 400 levels.
Okay, I neglected to mention it's in the amount of $75,997.11. Okay. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
Passes.
Resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds for HVAC maintenance, repairs, supplies, and equipment in the amount of $400,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Lewis seconds.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? I will add that the next resolution looks to be identical, but they are for different companies. So it is authorizing our maintenance department to have these services available from two separate companies.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on number AE? Okay, roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Burgess,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Steffi, yes.
Passes.
And then resolution AF is authorizing expenditure for funds for HVAC maintenance, repair supplies and the equipment in the amount of $400,000 for the second company. So they have two choices to go to.
Sturgis moves.
Sturgis moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Steffi, yes.
passes.
Mr. Chair, may I? AG. Resolution approving payment of commercial insurance fiscal year 2024, including auto, property, general liability, law enforcement, employment practices, public official liability, excess liability, and workers' compensation, and a service agreement extension with Presidio Insurance. That's the motion.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Surges, seconded by
Juby.
Ms. Juby. Mr. Surges.
Yes, sir.
Discussion.
Mr. Ryan, thank you for waiting so patiently and getting caught up in a very hectic meeting. If I can summarize this, we have two items for discussion today. The first one is all of that insurance comes at an approximate 5% increase over last year, which is fabulous. Thank you. That's such a dramatically lower amount than recent previous years. But the conversation was moved from Human Services Committee here in the notion of we have just reached a point where we are capable of purchasing some additional excess liability insurance. Rich, was that a $5 million amount for approximately 160,000? Correct. And we felt at Human Services that was truly something that was debated, discussed here at Finance. We did ask for some guidance from the state's attorney's office and from Kathy's office to say, is there any rule of thumb that we should be following? What are best practices? Where do we want to go? Do we want, 160,000 in the context of today's meeting is all important when you're counting pennies. The concept of 160,000 for $5 additional million based on a fund that's self-insured that has plenty of money available in it is a drop in the bucket. However, the conversation still needs to be had. What's the appropriate level? And I believe right now we have 25 million of excess, and we're wondering, do we want to go to 30 million for $160,000? I am not advocating. I am looking to our professionals to say, where do you think we should go? And I believe Mr. Frank did have an opinion. If I'm mistaken there, I apologize. I did not. But Rich is here to answer, so.
Yeah, I would defer to the risk loss, as well as an external kind of look at where governments land on typical judgments that come against them. Really, this will come down to the board's risk tolerance and what they would like to do. As far as the specific numbers, I'll defer to the speaker. But if the numbers, my general recommendation to you is if the numbers aren't reaching that level of liability, it's something you'd have to kind of consider the cost versus the risk. So it's a complete deference. I don't think there's anything that says you have to do it one way or the other. My preference would be to keep the number as low as possible, given the financial constraints of the board or of the budget. But if you have the money to do it, it's always better to have more insurance.
Mr. Chair, we did, in preparation for today's meeting, have loss runs pulled at the state's attorney's request to be able to make some educated judgments. And Rich, I would defer to you to give us your opinion, if you will.
So my opinion would be the same. My goal here was to let you know what was available again, because we at one point had up to 40 million in limits. We pulled those back or the county board pulled those back in years when it got too expensive. The largest loss year that I remember having from a liability standpoint was 13 million. And that's the largest I've seen in my tenure with the county. So the 25 million feels like
a reasonably good number. I just wanted you to know more is available. I can get up to 35 at this point, but it's at a cost. So I mean, it's, the next layer was going to be in the 125 range. So
Mr. Chair, if I could address directly, is there an urgency to do this today? Because they've now heard of this for about 45 seconds.
sure, no, there's not.
Okay, so can this be layered? If we said on January 1st, we've thought about this and we would like to layer that in.
Yes.
Is
we-
that
we
something?
would Prorate the premium at that point.
Okay,
yes.
and that would
So it's
stay in
available.
line with the other underlying policies?
Yes. It
Okay.
would not jeopardize any of the other coverage at all.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, with that given, I am not, we put the motion on the floor for discussion purposes. I would be way more comfortable giving this a little breathing room and discussing it again. At one point in time, a board prior to us felt that 40 million was appropriate. We backed that down when it was too difficult to get and way too expensive to buy, and we could only get, I think, 20 million
That's correct.
at the time. The fact that we've inched up to 25 million and now in an affordable notion, we can get up to 30. I don't know that the sentiment in the room right now is prepared to make that choice or make a decision on a snap like this. So I would ask, I would motion to postpone this for a 30-day period and come back at the next meeting. If that would be the decision, if that would be met with the board's respect. If not, we can vote on it.
I'll second that.
So you want a motion to postpone it to the next finance committee meeting?
I've motioned to bring this to the table in discussion. I'm saying that I would be happy to postpone this, but we needed to introduce this to finance and put it on the table for people's consideration.
Okay,
And if you think in finance, we have enough to discuss it now and say yay or nay, great.
so your motion to postpone is seconded by
Sanchez.
Sanchez. Yes,
We do need to have the remainder of the resolution. You can postpone the
Passed today.
decision on the $160,000 additional premium. But we do need the remainder of the resolution passed today so that it can make it to the board in November so that we have insurance in place on December 1st for the rest of our lines. But you can
Okay.
postpone the additional insurance as long as you would like.
may I suggest that you remove your postponement motion and your second?
So removed.
We're voting on what's happening here. If you explained it correctly, you can always bring it back at another time. Okay?
Correct.
So
Yes, so removed.
let's, if you'll remove your motion and your second, we can vote on the original resolution, which
Done.
Ms.
No
LaBelle is
resolution
suggesting that it
does
be
not
passed.
include the extra
question?
Does not
insurance.
include the extra. Okay.
Correct.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Yeah,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Tepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Leonard, yes.
Ah,
There
welcome
he
back.
is.
Darn technology.
Item AH, a resolution approving county board personal expense voucher reimbursement request for $91.44.
Point of information, can we take the next three items together?
Yes.
Okay, items AH, AI, and AJ individually in the amount of 91.44, 32.36, and $121.47.
Sanchez moves.
Up. Sanchez moves for all three. A second.
Juby seconds.
Juby seconds. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes.
Okay, I think we are now going back to the first page.
Mr. Chair.
Which item do we want to take first? One, two,
Mr.
or
Chair,
three?
Sturgis. I think you still have item G.
Yeah.
And if Kathy's back, maybe she can
Oh,
ask somebody from her
Thank you.
office on that. At least I have that circled still.
Is Kathy? Item G is a resolution for authorizing a contract for delinquent tax notice printing, preparation, and mailing services. The question was, whose budget does that come out of?
Well, it comes out of the treasurer's budget. I can't remember off the top of my head which fund, whether it was.
Not
the
of
gen-
his budget, good. I motion to call the vote.
Okay,
It's just not at
We
the
have a-
budget
we
table.
have a motion and second for that?
Surge's motion, Sanchez seconded.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
UBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surge's,
Burgess, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Deputy, yes.
Passes.
Okay, we're now back to items 1, 2, and 3. Under point 8, on page 1. Which one we gonna do first, Mr. Frank?
The appropriate course would be to do number 2 first.
Pardon?
The appropriate course would be to have number 2 go first.
Okay, still didn't hear you. Number 3 first?
For 2.
Number 2 first,
Dos.
okay? An ordinance adapt, okay, do you have the wording for this or? Not you? Would you be kind enough to read it for us?
See attached.
So the language that has been brought forward to enact the amendment as described by Ms. Juby and what she's attempting to do would be under this resolution where it says as of 10/25/23, it would be changed to as amended on 10/25/23. And then the finance director has actually made those amendments in the actual budget proposal to account for the recommendation, which I believe will basically pay for the amount that wasn't covered in the thing earlier related to the gas tax and will be paid for out of reserves. So those changes have been made. It'll now say as amended on 10/25/23. There'll be another amendment that'll have to correspond on number 1. So if you want to adopt and incorporate the language I'm saying as a part of your amendment, then you can make that motion.
It wasn't my amendment, but sure.
Or I was under the impression you were one
I
making.
said I'm not comfortable making it because I didn't have it in front of me. So I will make it if it can just be what you just said, I will make that amendment.
I'll second the Juby amendment.
And what was the amount?
Well, and all of you should have in your email, the members of the finance committee should have the rerun of the general fund and all the other funds in the county. As usual, making the change was easy, getting everything printed takes 5 times as much time. So the copies are being printed right now for you. But now the use of fund balance in the general fund is now 9.6 million, $9,676,550 of fund balance.
Could we have that repeated again so we can write it down? Mr. Tepe? Mr. Tepe,
I'm sorry.
could that be repeated one more time so we can write it down?
So the general fund 2024 proposed budget is now using $9,676,550 of fund balance, essentially reserves, to balance the budget.
I have another follow-up question on that, please.
And that's roughly an increase of 6.2 million.
Right, that's
Of
the
the
six
fund
point two million that we took out that I had budgeted for local RTA tax that would have been transferred from the transportation department. I also went in to the transportation department's budgets, their RTA sales tax fund. I added back 6.2 and reduced their fund balance utilization for their RTA fund. And on Fund 304, I took out the additional local motor fuel tax revenue that they would have received, and I increased their use of fund balance on their local option motor fuel tax fund. So 3 funds, we made changes to general fund, local option motor fuel fund, and RTA transportation fund.
And if as a follow-up, if you would update and send out the chart that you had made showing in the future what the
Yes, I will
reserve
do that.
fund would be,
Yes, I will do
okay?
that, yep.
Because this means that we use that fund up quite a bit faster.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Thank.
Madam Chair, you had a question?
Yes, that was going to be my question. Perhaps, do we know now how much is left in the reserve fund as of today with that move, with that potential move?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay,
I have to
okay.
rerun.
Okay, but you'll.
But
be sending that to-
I will rerun that this afternoon and send that out to everybody.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is an amendment to item number 2 on the budget. So it's adopting the fiscal year 2024 annual appropriations budget as amended. Okay, where the reserve fund, we are utilizing $9.67 million from the reserve fund in fiscal year 2024 to balance the budget.
The general fund budget.
That's the appropriate explanation? Okay, so that would be adopting the ordinance with that change in number 2. May I have a motion on that and a second?
You did have.
You have an amendment to vote on.
Earlier.
So we're doing an amendment. Okay. So we have the motion for number 2. We are amending it.
You have a motion and a second on the amendment already. So you are just finished discussion. You need to take a vote on the actual amendment, and then we'll take a vote on the motion as amended.
So we need a motion on the amendment.
You have a motion on the amendment.
No, we're ready to vote.
No, you're ready to vote on the amendment.
Voting on the amendment. Okay. Who made the motion? Juby did.
Juby and Sanchez.
Okay. Roll call, please, on the amendment.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Pepe.
Kepi, no.
Passes.
And now we, a motion on the appropriations and budget. Roll
No,
call.
You're
As
calling the
amended.
vote on the main motion as amended by the Juby amendment.
Right.
You know, but you already have a motion.
Right.
Oh,
Calling the vote.
Just calling the voter
The vote.
unless there's more discussion.
we
Oh.
didn't do this.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard. Could I ask a
Yes.
question?
Absolutely.
Yes, you know, well, thank you. I'm sorry I have been in and out of connection on this meeting, but I wanted to make sure I understood that that item number 3, which was adopting a tax levy for the general fund of, I believe it was 35.6 million, that was approved by the finance committee today?
No, item 3 has not been voted on yet, has it?
No, it has.
Yes.
Okay, yes, it has. This is,
That was
this
his
is
late
going
vote.
back and balancing out the appropriations to replace the funds that had been removed associated with the RTA change
Yes.
and with the gas tax change.
Yes, I do understand that. I just wanted to reconfirm that the property tax levy for the general fund, which is item 3, was approved by the finance committee. And I just wanted to make sure that my vote of no on that was recorded.
Point of order.
Let's see.
I don't know how we can, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I want to wait to be
It was
called on.
recorded.
I don't know how he wasn't here for the vote. So how can it go on record when he wasn't here? I mean, I understand why he wants to go on record and I'm fine with that, but I don't understand how that can happen if he's not there for the vote.
I think he could be allowed by the committee to have his vote counted. 'cause
So
it
we
was
make a motion for that?
Just an
I don't
agreement.
think we need
I
to.
think without objection,
Okay,
you can do it.
okay,
It was a technical issue that caused.
Okay,
right. I'm a yes. I just wanted to make sure we're.
now let's call the vote on item 2 as amended.
Juby,
GBI,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Kepi, no.
Passes 4-2.
Okay. Now we need a motion and a second on resolution number 1.
Sanchez moves.
GB seconds.
Mr. Frank?
The So for purposes of discussion, at some point in this amendment will need to be made. There's a reference of number 2 in number 1 in the resolution at the bottom. Where it'll need to change to as amended. So where you see it now, therefore, be it resolved, the King County Board, that the draft 24 budget as of 10/25 will need to be amended to as amended on 10/25/23. So whoever would like to make that motion, but it'll need to be done if it can be passed.
Sanchez would make that motion to amend as mentioned by our Assistant State's Attorney.
Okay, so the original motion is withdrawn and Mr. Sanchez is,
No.
No, main
He's
motion,
making a
main
motion
motion
to
stands.
amend.
I'm amending.
okay, made motion to amend it as per this wording. Okay, may I have a second on the amendment?
Lewis
Juby
will second.
seconds.
Lewis seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Second, please.
Amended. It's good.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Tepe. Is it tie 3-3?
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
We have to pass it today.
So all this amendment is essentially doing it would be to reflect the change that was just approved 4-2.
I'll change my vote. I'll change my vote. Make my vote yes.
Passes 4-2.
Okay. Now we must vote on the motion as amended. Call the
Juby,
vote, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Or just no.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Passes 4-2.
Okay, I believe we are now on,
Old business.
Wasn't that old business?
It's real old by now.
Closed session.
Really, really old. Page 4.
oh, there we go. Bottom of page 4, old business. I'm sure somebody has something. Okay,
I have no old business.
I need a motion to replace reports on file.
Motion for unanimous consent. Sanchez.
Nope. Need a motion to place reports on file.
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Okay. I'd like to amend that motion. I'd like to remove from the documents, pages 22 through 40. These are incidental documents that were added that, in my opinion, have nothing to do with the operation of the county. They have nothing to do with information for the county, and that it is nothing but propaganda. So my motion is to remove those documents, those pages from the document files.
I'm not aware of what those are.
The treasurer's report.
Go to the additional items that were added by the treasurer.
Oh, we call this politics. I gotta bring them up. Are they in the packet?
Blair, can you put those up or no?
Yes. Page 22. Then 23, 24, 25.
Why don't we want to?
So my motion is to remove those, my amendment is to remove those pages. Is there a second, or does it fail?
This is Lewis. I'll second it.
Okay. Motion is seconded. Any discussion?
I just have a question. I would like to ask the state's attorney, what ramifications we have if we take this out or if we leave it in, does it matter?
It. I mean, it's a motion to place it on file or not place it on file. It is what it is, it's a public document. Whether you place it on file or not is a matter for the chairman and the committee to decide. But I don't know that it has any legal impact other than, I mean, theoretically, I suppose if somebody wanted to submit as part of their report, the Chicago Telephone Directory, you could decide whether you wanted to place it on file or not.
Okay, thank you. I agree. It's not, I don't see anything in here that's germane to Kane County, so I questioned why it was here, but I don't know that it matters if it's.
Let's take a roll call on the amendment.
Mr. Chair, before we take a vote, Leonard, I'd just like to ask, I don't have access to looking at those pages right now. What does that pertain to?
It pertains to a whole bunch of items that, in my opinion, do not relate to Kane County.
What
and do not
kind of
relate- do
items,
not
I
relate
guess?
to. Well, it's talking about people moving out of the state, got nothing to do with Kane County.
Uh-huh. So it really is.
Credit card debt. Okay, let's take a roll call on the amendment.
Juby,
I want to be the first vote.
You're important.
Can I pass?
You can pass.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Tepe,
Except a yes.
Juby,
I would be the tie, wouldn't I? Juby, yes.
passes 4-2.
Okay. Now a motion on the
Motion as
reports,
amended.
place the rest of the reports on file.
Voice vote.
Let's take the vote
You do voice vote.
I just.
As amended.
as amended.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis. Lewis.
Lewis, yes. Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Tepe.
Except a yes.
What's on file?
I have no comments. I don't think we want to go into executive session. But we do have some people that stayed around, or if they did stay around. Is Deb Fisher here? Is Ken Lobel here? Is Stephen Brewowitz here? There we go, Stephen. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I just actually thought this was more on agenda than off, but whatever. And it won't take me 3 minutes, I don't think. I've heard Treasurer Lawson come up here and proclaim he's some kind of financial genius because he earned a lot of more interest than expected, but I wasn't expecting the inflation either, and neither was my bank. So apparently I'm a financial genius too. The inflation affects all of us, and it doesn't affect us just this year. It affects us every year. If you adjust for inflation since the last time before today that Kane County passed an increase due to inflation, your $100 in 2010 would be worth $70 today. And basically that's what all of this is about, is trying to keep up with inflation and patching things on. And so far we've been lucky. We've gotten funds from the federal government for COVID that we weren't expecting, that patched our budget the last couple of years. And it just needs to stop. We need to fund our government properly so that we can keep up deferred maintenance and stop deferring. You know, buildings get older, They need repair and replacement. People need wages. If your wage had not gone up from 2010 until today, you'd be one angry employee and you'd be looking for work elsewhere. And the crux of the matter is you can put pressure on people so long and they start losing. And Kane County's had a serious problem with keeping employees over time because our wages are lower than most other counties surrounding us. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Looks like you have a delivery.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
My, why?
Mr. Sanchez,
So moved.
second?
Louis will second it, and thank you
Louis
very
will
much for your leadership.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Aye.
I'll hear you out in the country.
Get one. You did-